Let's go.
Thank you.
And everyone has been admitted.
Excellent. So this Livingston City Commission meeting on March 1st, 2022 is called to order. Roll call, please.
Chair Newt,
Here.
Vice Chair Kale,
Here.
Commissioner Friedman,
Here.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Present.
Commissioner Lyons.
Did you get everybody, Faith? Michael, can you confirm if she got everybody on your end?
I think she got everybody but Commissioner Lyons. Did anybody else? I can see you. I just didn't hear you.
You hear me? I'm here.
There, now we can hear you.
Okay, great. So before we move into public comment, I wanted to, Michael, please help me if I have this in the wrong place, but I wanted to switch an item on the agenda to move it up earlier. Is now the appropriate time? Okay, I wanted to suggest that we moved action item A, the tree board recommendation, up to in front of the ordinances. So the tree board chair doesn't have to stick around through the whole meeting for that one action item. Does that sound okay with the rest of the commission and staff? Does that sound good?
Yeah, if you'd like, you could even move it directly after his scheduled public comment, so you can look
Okay,
at both of those at the
Yeah,
same
let's
time.
do it then.
if that works for Shannon too, I'm happy to do that. I'm not hearing Shannon, so hopefully that works for Shannon.
It will.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so let's do general public comment. So individuals are reminded that public comments should be limited to items over which the city commission has supervision, jurisdiction, control, or advisory power. And these are for items that are not listed on the agenda. So please, if you have public comment to offer, put your name in the chat or raise your Zoom hand or come off mute and state your name and address for the record.
Madam Chair, this is Jesse Wilcox. I have my hand up. May I make comment?
Yeah, hey Jesse, thank you.
Hi.
Please.
Sure thing. My name is Jesse Wilcox. I live at 617 North 8th Street in Livingston. Good evening, commissioners. I'm making comment this evening wearing my public health hat. I'm the community health coordinator for Livingston Healthcare, and I also facilitate a local coalition called Live Well 49. I work with many community partners on health and wellness related issues, as well as mental health, crisis response, and suicide prevention. I'm commenting on the conversation you all had on the February 15th meeting, in which you decided on an ad hoc visioning committee to help guide the commission on ARPA fund allocations in the community. I appreciate your willingness to include the community as well as city staff in this decision making, and I appreciate this commission and its openness and eagerness for public comment. I do, however, have an ask as we move from COVID response in our community to COVID recovery. Some of the need is more immediate than your timeline may allow. Live Well 49 has requested funding for fiscal year 23, which for us starts July 1 of 2022, and we have submitted a request through Mr. Cardos. Our request has to do with youth mental health supports for Park County, and as the CDC has stated in response to the pandemic, a population health approach is needed to address the impact of COVID-19 pandemic and the inadequacies of the nation's current approach to behavioral health needs, which have been magnified during the pandemic. And according to the Montana Youth Risk Surveillance Survey, which was conducted last year in 2021, depression among high school students hit its highest rate in 3 decades, 41% during the pandemic. So given the urgent need to address mental health issues facing our community, I'm hoping the commission would consider allocating a certain portion of the ARPA funds to be allocated in fiscal year 23. And again, for us, that's July 1 of 2022, and the rest could be left up to that ad hoc visioning process. So thanks for your consideration.
Jesse, can I just ask you a quick follow-up question? When are you all hoping to finalize your budget?
Well, we have a matching grant from AMB West that we are required to have funds committed by April 30th of 2022. The funds have to be committed but not received until the fiscal year actually starts, which is July 1.
Thank you, Jesse. Does anyone else have public comment? All right, I don't see anything else, so let's roll into consent items. A, B, C, and D, or any that folks want pulled from the agenda. I actually want consent item A pulled. Is there anything that anybody else wants pulled?
No.
All right, out of character, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to pull agenda item A, consent item A, and approve B through D.
I'll second.
So motion by Newt, second by Kale for B, C, and D. Roll call, please.
Chair Newt,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kale,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
4.
Commissioner Lyons.
4.
Motion passes. So I just wanted to correct the minutes from last meeting. On page, let's see, page 7 of the agenda. So it's page 3 of the meeting minutes. This was for the joint resolution 2022-01 from last week. We actually made a motion to table. Motion was by Kale and the second was from Lyons, and it passed unanimously, and that's not reflected in the minutes. So I just wanted to put it in the minutes that we tabled it with that vote. Does that work, Faith?
Yes, I'll make that correction.
Michael? Okay. So I get with that amendment, that's all I had to say about consent item A. Does anybody else have anything they want to add, commissioners?
So you just need a motion and a vote to pass it with the amendment.
Yep, that's right. I was just gonna say that we're ready for a motion then.
I'll make a motion that we approve consent item A with the edits to resolution A to add the motion and the votes.
Is there a second?
Second.
So motion by Kale, second by Lyons. Roll call, please.
Go ahead.
Chair Newt,
4.
Vice Chair Kale,
Or
Commissioner Freeman,
4.
Commissioner Schwartz,
4.
Commissioner Lyons.
4.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right, we have no proclamations. Next up on the list is scheduled public comment. Marshall Swearingen of City Tree Board presents the 2021 annual report. Mr. Cardus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is the next in the series of board reports to the commission. Tonight will be the tree board, so I will hand it over to Marshall for their report.
Hi, everyone. So I'm looking at the same report that you are in the packet, and yeah, I guess I'm happy to answer any questions or give an overview, whatever people would like.
Thanks, Marshall. I think if you want to give just highlights or anything that stands out from the year, we would love to hear it, although we all did read your report.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. It's been a busy year for the tree board. I think one thing of note is we kind of came up with a strategic plan to try and work out as a board what our priorities are. And this was what informed our budget recommendation for this coming year. So I can just go over those at kind of a high level, I guess, because we submitted this budget recommendation in December before the 2 new commissioners were on. So I'm not sure if you've seen those. So our top priority here is to support new tree establishment and boulevards. Our second priority is to develop an updated tree management plan in support of considering tree districts or tree maintenance districts. And then our third priority is planting along the Park Street and Highway 89 corridor. So yeah, in our strategic plan, which we included in that budget recommendation, we go into more depth, kind of some more granular details of how we envision trying to work toward those things as a board.
Thanks, Marshall. Commissioners, do any of you have questions for Marshall? I know the tree board has been really busy the last few years, and you might not have seen everything that they've been doing, but this is a really wonderful overview if you're new to the commission.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Schwartz.
Yeah, I just congratulations to the tree board for a great report and well done. Look forward to seeing the strategic plan implemented on this and the continued work. So great work. Just keep it up. Thanks.
Thanks, Commissioner Schwartz. Other commissioners? Questions, comments for Marshall? It's a sign of a solid report.
Okay.
It's so clear, people don't even have questions. I think it's really great. I would, just second what Quentin said. You all have been doing really great work and it's not going unnoticed, and we look forward to what's to come. So if there's nothing else about that, we can move to action item A. Everybody's ready? All right. So we're going to jump ahead so Marshall doesn't have to wait till the very end of this meeting.
Thanks.
Yeah. So action item A is discuss, approve, deny city tree board recommendation for text amendments to the city tree board bylaws. Mr. Cardus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is just a small update to the tree board bylaws, which obviously have to be approved by the city commission. All it does, and we'll bring it up on the screen here in just a second, is change in the current tree board bylaws. It was the secretary that you can see that was to prepare the agenda. We're just changing that to the chair. So that becomes a responsibility of the chair, which aligns a little easier since the chair usually is the one determining what will be on the agenda. So it's just to streamline the process a little bit, unless the chair worked directly with Faith to get the agendas created and put on the website. So that is the only change. I will point out that we're going to try to standardize a little bit how we do changes. So you'll see this notation more often, where it's red strike through if it's something that's being deleted and blue underline if it's something that's being added. So we're going to try and be a little more standardized in how we do changes, but that's not related to this item. So there you see the only change, and that is recommended by the tree board and agreed. The staff agrees that that's a good change. So.
Commissioners, do you all have any questions before a motion, like clarifying? All right, so first up, we'll have a motion.
Make a motion to approve action item A.
I'll second.
I think Mel beat you to it. So motion by Schwartz and a second by Friedman, and then we'll move into public comment. So if public, if anybody wants to comment on this action item, please, you know the drill by now. Raise your hand, come off mute, put your name in the chat. All right, I don't see anything, so public comment is closed. We'll go back to the commissioners. I think this is pretty straightforward. I think this makes Marshall's job as chair much easier. If he can just track the agenda and get it out and work with staff. So it's pretty straightforward, I think. Anybody else? All right, roll call, please.
Chair News,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kale,
4,
Commissioner Freeman,
4.
Commissioner Schwartz,
4.
Commissioner Lyons.
4.
Motion passes. Thank you so much, Marshall, for being here tonight.
Yeah, thanks. Nice to meet the new commissioners, and we'll be in touch.
See you at the next board meeting. All right, next item on the list is scheduled public comment. Shannon Holmes, Public Works Director with Public Works Projects Update. Mr. Cardus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Public Works has a lot going on right now, and we're just entering the construction season, so you're going to see a lot more. So we thought now might be a good time for just a general overview of everything that's going on. So Shannon is going to provide that to you. Shannon, I have all of your graphics available. So if there's something you want, just let me know and I will share it on the screen.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Mike. Well, good evening, Madam Chair. It's great to see you and the other members of the commission. I hope everybody's doing well. We are gearing up for another very busy, beneficial public works project season here in 2022. But before I get into the projects, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the hardworking staff in all the public works departments. And that's from streets, solid waste, parks, water sewer, and the water reclamation facility, including Martha and Helen on the administrative side. They all do an amazing job. They're hardworking, and we are grateful as a community to have their service. So I'm just very proud of all the things that we've accomplished. So Mike included a copy of our Public Works newsletter in the packet, and I guess I wanted to start off with any questions you might have on any of the more operational things that we're doing in-house, and then some of the projects on the back side of the newsletter. If you have any questions you want to ask before I get started. Is that a no?
It appears we're all eager to listen.
All right. So from an operational standpoint, we're very busy and obviously taking advantage of the intermittent spring-like weather like we had today. So the Water and Sewer Department is very diligently working on getting generators at a booster station for the 1 million reservoir that pumps water to the 2 million. The clinic well and the clinic lift station. They're also going to be out, weather permitting, turning water valves and flushing hydrants. One special project of note that I want to draw some attention to is last fall, we did a project and in my understanding is the first ever in the city of Livingston, where we had Martha design a 110-foot sewer main, and then our water and sewer crew went out and did the installation on that, and we upsized a 4-inch water main or sewer main, excuse me, to an 8-inch. And it was a very successful project. Martha did a great job in the design and getting DEQ approval. And we hope to do more of that moving forward as our schedule allows. Because if we do it in-house, we can do it about 25 cents on the dollar of what it would be to have it contracted. So a huge benefit to our community to have that ability. The Parks Department is working diligently on assisting with the hazard tree grant that we received. And we're at the point where most of the trees have either been cut down and we're going to be moving to the stump grinding phase of that. They're also taking advantage of the weather and cleaning up the roping arena. We just recently purchased a picnic shelter that we're going to install at the Green Acres Park, and doing some work in the cemetery with the nicer weather as well to try to get ahead of the spring. So very busy. Solid waste. We are in the negotiation phase of dealing with Republic Services, who contracts all of our hauling of waste from our transfer station to Great Falls. We're also working on promoting the Green Can program for this spring, and working through some of the operational changes with the county pulling out of hauling their garbage effective July 1st. A lot of exciting news at the water reclamation facility. Unfortunately, we are a person short there, effective a week ago on Friday. So hats off to Chuck and his team for holding down the fort. We did have an interview today from a prospective candidate that flew in from Phoenix, so I'm optimistic about that. But a lot of exciting news in the water reclamation world, as far as at the state level with the nutrient work group, and looking at moving from numeric limits for nutrients such as nitrogen and phosphorus into more of a narrative adaptive management plan process. Chuck and I attended the Upper Yellowstone Watershed Coalition a week ago on Wednesday, and introduced them as stakeholders in water quality upstream of Livingston. And that meeting went really well, and actually have two follow-up meetings, one with Wendy Weaver and another with Ford Smith and his father, on looking at opportunities to work with them moving forward. The street department, outside of intermittent snowstorms and 30-degree below temperatures and trying to keep our streets safe, they've been working on building the pad for our cold storage building that the commission approved in this current year's budget. And we're working with Morton Buildings on that, and excited that the building package should be delivered in April sometime. And they're telling us it'll only take them about a month to get that constructed. So that is some things on the operational side. Project wise, as you notice later on in the agenda, we've got 4 contracts in front of you for approval. The Green Acres Montag sewer extension design is one of those. That has been a project that, I've been working with the Green Acres residents for the last 4 years on that project. And we plan to provide do a presentation for the commission in the second meeting in March on the findings of the preliminary engineering report that the commission approved this time last year. Another contract in front of you is for construction of the 6th and 7th water project. That is going to be 6 blocks of 4-inch water main replacement that we're doing between Callender and Geyser Street. Those water mains are undersized, and unfortunately, we've had a lot of water breaks in those 6 blocks in the time I've been here. So we're looking forward to being able to move forward with that project. And it was a project that we actually designed and bid back in 2016 and 17. But with the emphasis on improving the downtown, we just didn't have the budget to do this project. So we're excited to get this one underway. Another exciting project that is not on tonight's agenda, but is the Civic Center sewer extension. We received a grant for $312,000 from the coal tax endowment. And we've been working with the school district, met with Lynn Scalia and her team, because we are going to have to extend the sewer across the high school parking lot between the football field and the school to get it over towards the Civic Center and ultimately to Sacagawea Park. Very exciting project where we're going to get 3 septic systems onto city sewer within close proximity to the river. Another exciting project that we will have a contract for you tonight is the stormwater preliminary engineering report, and another grant that we received. And kudos to Lisa and all her hard efforts for her grant applications. We're seeing the fruit of her labor on that, and I'm very excited. I'm passionate about stormwater in our community, and it's the forgotten utility that I really feel like we need to put some focus and attention on, and hopefully this preliminary engineering report can outline some important projects that we need to do in town with cost estimates, and hopefully help you and your decision-making process on possibly creating a stormwater utility in Livingston where we have a dedicated funding source for stormwater projects. Any questions? And am I going at an okay pace, or do I need to
You're
slow down?
fantastic. Shannon Holmes,
Okay.
you're
All right.
fantastic.
Very
It's
good.
like you've done this before. Commissioners, do any of you have questions for Shannon? I know I always do.
So
But do you want questions now? Before you
I have a few more if you
Go
want
for
me
it.
to.
Yeah, please.
So a couple projects that are a little off the radar. So we are working with NeighborWorks Montana. They are part of the community-owned park at View Vista. And they actually received a grant to do a PER, or preliminary engineering report, as well, for looking at extending water and sewer mains into View Vista Trailer Park and having more standard water and sewer connections. In its current state, all the utilities within the View Vista Trailer Park are private, and they've been known to leak and fail over the last several years. So the commission, I think a year and a half ago, signed a consecutive services agreement with NeighborWorks Montana for View Vista. And so they applied it. Lisa again drafted the grant application. We received that, and it's advertised in the paper right now for statements of qualifications for engineers to do that project. And then I got to acknowledge Jessie Wilcox. She was on earlier. I'm working with her on hopefully getting the Alpenglow Trail paved between Livingston Healthcare and the Myers River Trail, and actually connecting to the asphalt trail on the east side of Veterans Bridge, and putting in handicap parking spots and a cattle-friendly gate to access the Myers River Park. Moving on to developments, very busy. Martha submitted our second round of comments for the FedEx development out near Printing for Less. Those that have drove by there, they have already started some of the site work and stripping the topsoil for the building there. And there will be water and sewer main extensions and street building for that project as well, along with street lights. So another one is the Starbucks at the old Arby's. Martha's worked with their engineer on looking at site improvements such as stormwater and sidewalk, parking lot improvements to hopefully improve the site for that once Starbucks opens. Another one that started in early January was the Tri-Tip development. Currently, they're working on 10 of the 20 condos for that development out on Scenic Trail near Northtown development. 2 weeks ago, we had the pre-construction meeting for Eagles Landing. So CP Builders is starting on the last phase of Eagles Landing behind Albertsons. There will be three more 12-unit condo buildings for that development that should be completed by late 2022. We're working with the developer at Discovery Vista for the next phases of Discovery Vista, and that will all have to go through the planning board and ultimately to the commission for subdivision review there and approval. As you approved in January, the Laren property has now been annexed and they have development plans. So we are working with them on what their site development requirements are going to be. And then last but not least, we are working with Northtown for future phases of Northtown as well. So it's a lot. We're very busy. No one can accuse us of not getting things done here in Livingston. So I certainly welcome any questions, and I apologize if I went over everything too quickly.
No apologies necessary. Commissioners, do you have questions for Shannon about anything that he covered, or? I have some questions.
All
It
right.
shouldn't be a surprise. I love public works updates. So first, huge thanks to Martha. That's amazing. So this was not a service that Livingston had before, this capability to design. It sounds like, Shannon?
So Martha is our first licensed PE on city staff. So we're very, very fortunate that she lives in our community and works for our organization and has that license to be able to help us with engineering.
Yeah, what a
Challenge.
great hire and what a great benefit to taxpayers. I mean, thank you. That's fantastic. And I just wanted to let you know, I get a lot of positive feedback about Public Works and all the engagement that you folks do with the community on different projects. So I just want to make sure that you know that, and that you know that we get that kind of feedback about your staff. It's a department I consistently at least get positive feedback about. And I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. So you said Discovery Vista is going to go through the planning board. I assume Northtown will also, the future phases, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay,
It will have to go through the whole preliminary plating and subdivision process with the planning board and then ultimately through the commission.
okay. And I don't know, maybe this isn't a question for you, but for Michael, that's still on track, even though we're down a planner.
It will be. They haven't presented us with anything yet, so we'll have to wait to get an application from them. But once we do that, then we'll move forward with it.
Okay, cool. And then I was gonna ask you, the Civic Center, so that's really great news. I think that the city applied more than once for a grant, didn't we? And we
Yep.
finally found one.
That is correct. We applied one round. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but we did not, we were not awarded the first application, but we were the second.
That'll be a great project. I'm glad to see that one has some funding. I know the newer commissioners don't have as much backstory, but I'm sure you'll give that backstory when it comes time to vote on something. So that's great to hear that there's funding for that. Great job, Lisa, on getting all these grants too. And also the View Vista, I just want to comment that that's a really good update also to hear that View Vista is finding some funding for infrastructure. It's really exciting updates. And I know that was a concern that the commission had about that particular part of town. So yeah, thank you so much, Shannon. This is all really great news. And you're right, nobody can accuse Public Works of slacking, that's for sure. So thank you. And thank you. I saw that you all sanded alleys this year. That was new and different. I hadn't seen that in our alley, at least before, and it was nice because we were getting stuck. So I'm probably not the only person on the north side glad to see ice sanded this year. Other commissioners, do you have anything you want to ask or comment on with Shannon? Yeah, Commissioner Lyons.
I doubt this is coincidence, but it seems that there has been a focus on connecting to city sewer in places that are close to the river, that are especially ecologically sensitive. And so I applaud that. I applaud that focus of your resources to that end. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, I owe it all to the city commission because, you know, the $19 million water reclamation facility upgrade was about a 8-year process. And it also, you know, it included some pretty significant rate increases, but having community support and commission support to build a facility that has additional capacity for a population of 12,000 people, and just so proud of the effluent that we discharge into the river. We're in a good position to hopefully treat and process all the wastewater in environmentally sensitive areas.
Thank you.
Other commissioners?
Madam Chair, I'll just add, great job, Shannon and the gang. I meet a lot of guys that work for the department out on the streets, and every one of them is nice and pleasant to deal with. So thank you. Keep up the good work. It's awesome.
Chair
Vice
Newt,
Keel? Yeah.
I
Go
just
for
like
it.
to again thank Shannon and his staff for all the work that they're doing. It's really exciting to see all this happening in our community, and I know you guys are short-staffed and you're staying on top of it. So thank you so much. And I also enjoyed your fun fact that was at the top of your newsletter. So thank you for that. It was fun to read. So thanks.
Well, you're welcome, and it's a pleasure to meet you and get to know you. I look forward to getting to work with you, and you know, we have a great crew at the city, and we're getting a lot of things done, and we're very proud of that.
Commissioner Friedman, you wanna close us out? You have anything to say?
He's
Before
doing a
next-
great job. He's been with us a long time, and I've been with him a long time, and he just continues to get better. So that's good news for everybody. But Shannon, super job. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And again, if you have any other questions, you know, don't hesitate to reach out to Mike to ask me, and I'm more than happy to help or give anyone a tour of our facilities, wells, lift stations, water reclamation facilities, transfer stations. You know, we're fortunate to have the resources and facilities we do here in Livingston. So thank you for all you do as well.
Thanks, Shannon. I've only done half of those tours, so I have now things to add to the list, and I would recommend it. If I know Commissioner Friedman and Commissioner Schwartz have done most of these, but I would recommend it to new commissioners too. It's pretty remarkable to see what staff sees and what the public doesn't see when it comes to the water reclamation facility and to the transfer station. It's worth the time to tour with Shannon for sure. Thank you so much, Shannon. I hope you'll stick around for these public works items that we have on the agenda tonight.
Absolutely, Madam Chair. I'll be available to answer any questions on the contracts as we move forward, and we will have Matt McGee, our city engineer from TD&H. He'll be on as well. So thank you so
All right.
much for the opportunity.
We'll see you later in the program then. Thank you. All right, next up on the list is public hearings, which we have none. So we're going to move into ordinances. And these are long to read, so bear with me. Ordinance number 3027, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Livingston, Montana, amending section 30.13 of the Livingston Municipal Code entitled Official Zoning Map of the City of Livingston by zoning parcels generally known as 26 Fleshman Creek Road and legally described as COS 543 in section 14, Township 2 South, Range 9 East as medium density residential. Mr. Curtis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's an excellent job reading that. I try not to. So all of the ordinances tonight are from the Zoning Commission. They are areas of the city that have been annexed and need to be zoned. So they were This will be new zoning for them. The zoning didn't exist prior to this. I am going to pull up a map super quick so you can see where we're talking about. This is the map from the packet. Let me see if I can get to it. Hold on. There we go. So this is the parcel that we're talking about zoning this evening. It is the property that is in the north or the Ridgeview Trails subdivision, but was in the county until annexed. The public areas that you see surrounding it are the cemetery here to the southwest, and this is the armory to the southeast and directly south. So this was one of the holes in the city that we looked to annex, which we did, and now we're looking to zone. In this particular case, the zoning commission has looked at that. The staff report is in your packet, but the recommendation from both was to zone it R2 as the property that surrounds it completely. So there's no change as far as that goes. I'm going to flip to the end of the packet real quick. Please don't get seasick as I do. Just to note, there was an error in the staff report that I've highlighted for you. So in the public hearing, which this is a report on the public hearing at the zoning commission, it says proposed R3 zoning, but the proposed zoning was R2. So we went back to verify that in the recording, and it was. So the unanimous 4-0 recommendation from the zoning commission was for R2. The staff recommendation was also for R2, and it was surrounded by R2. So that seemed to make the most sense. I won't get into all the details of the staff report. However, they did go through all of the required items as far as state law goes for the zoning. There's nothing particular about this piece of property that would prevent it from being R2. It fits in with the neighborhood. It is provides all the required light and services that would need to be. So I will leave it there for questions from the commission.
I just have one real quick question. And then Commissioner Lyons. The other place this is R3 is on page 40 of the agenda. Do you mind pulling that up really quick? It's under objective 5.1.4. So there were 2 spots.
Let me find it real quick and then I'll share my screen.
It's just at the top. It's at the top of page 40. Or near the top.
Yeah, sure.
I got it.
I just wanted to confirm that the description in the text is actually describing R2 zoning or R3 zoning.
So this does describe R2. This part is incorrect as it describes R3. R2 only goes up to 2 or goes up to duplex and then 2 ADUs.
Okay, so you're saying that the condos and apartment buildings is incorrect and
So
should be omitted?
condos could be done as duplexes or single family, but apartment buildings cannot be done.
Okay,
Yeah, so the apartment building is correct. It looks like this was cut and paste from an R3 zone and it should have been R2.
so apartment buildings is incorrect?
That's correct. You can only go to duplex on R2.
Okay. Okay, that is the question that I had. Commissioner Lyons.
That was my comment. I think that I'm pretty sure that the whole copy there, including the satisfaction of objective 5.1.4 would be the case if it were R3, but it's not, it's R2. So if I were writing that staff report, I would get rid of that whole section. Because it says promote a mix of housing within neighborhoods. R2 is less effective at achieving that objective than R3. So I think that probably came from another staff report and that was mistakenly put in.
It's okay. I've gotten rid of the planner since then.
That's harsh.
That was a joke for people who
It
didn't
was.
get it. Yeah.
Yes, Matthew departed from us, so he was trying to get all these done before he walked out the door. So I'm not surprised there's a couple errors in them. But I do thank him for completing them before he left. So that was very nice of him.
I guess while we're on that topic, I appreciated the staff reports. I think they do a good job of speaking to what's required by code and also referencing the intent of the growth policy. So other than, and also this was the only mistake of the 3 different ordinances that I noticed. So I expected to need to contribute a lot to the discussion to these 3 ordinances, and for those who have read the staff reports, I don't, other than this, I'm not going to have much to add. So thanks again to Matthew, who isn't here, unfortunately.
Do other commissioners have clarifying questions before we move towards a motion and public comment? Okay, I don't see anything. So let's move to, well, first I want to ask a question. Because the planning board really got in my head, being on the planning board. So if we disagree with something in the findings of fact for zoning, such as what Commissioner Lyons brought up, would that need to happen in the motion, or we can discuss that, right? We can do that in our discussion, and if we need to amend our motion, we just amend our motion.
Sure, and I would probably only bother with that if you are going to go against the recommendation. So if you're going to remain R2, it's not necessary. You can, but it's probably only necessary if you want to change the recommendation.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, so we will move to a motion. Does anyone want to make a motion on ordinance number 3027?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 3027.
I'll second.
It's a motion by Lyons and a second by Schwartz, and now we'll move into public comment. So if anybody wants to give comment on ordinance number 3027, you know the drill, hand up, name in the chat, and state your name and address for the record. I don't see anyone. So public comment is closed, and so we'll go to commission discussion. Commissioners? Who wants to go first? Commissioner Lyons.
This seems pretty straightforward. It seems to me that it was just a remnant of the way that this area was developed whenever it was developed. The fact that that parcel remained out of the city. I think that zoning it to R2 is consistent with both the future land use map, the intentions of the growth policy, and also I think generally maintaining contiguous zoning designations makes sense. So for those reasons, and that's all covered in the staff report. So I think this is a pretty straightforward, and I support the zoning ordinance.
Thank you. Other commissioners?
Chair Newts, I would just say I agree with Commissioner Lyons. This seems like a pretty straightforward zoning update.
Thank you. Commissioner Schwartz?
Yeah, and just to note, this is our second reading of this. I don't know if it was noted. It was first brought to us back in September. So
the reading back in September was for the annexation. This is actually the first one on the zoning. So there will still be there'll be a public hearing on this if passed.
Oh, that's right. We approved the second reading. Never mind. I misread. Okay, very good.
Oh, no,
I agree all the way through.
And that's all right, Commissioner Schwartz. I think there's a couple readings for annexing and for zone changes. So thanks for remembering that we worked on this in September. Anyone else? All right. One of many map cleanups we've been working on for the last very long while. So we have a motion and a second, and we're ready for roll call, please.
Chair Newts,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kale,
Four.
Commissioner Freeman,
4,
Commissioner Schwartz,
Or,
Commissioner Lyons.
Or,
Motion passes. Next up, ordinance number 3028, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Livingston, Montana, amending section 30.13 of the Livingston Municipal Code entitled Official Zoning Map of the City of Livingston by zoning parcels generally known as 25 Loves Lane and legally described as Lot 5A of the Lauren Minor subdivision in section 23, Township 2 South, Range 9 East as high-density residential. Mr. Cardus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is a zoning of the Laren property, which was brought in through an annexation by request of the landowner. I'm going to show you a couple share screens here, see if I can get to the right one. Hold on just a second. There we go. The first one is going to be the future land use map of so this is the extraterritorial jurisdiction. Because this area was outside the city, it's not on the future land use map that is inside the city. So you can see Loves Lane is over here, and this area would be in the little yellow category, which for this is medium density residential. That is on the packet. If you look on page 54, Matthew addresses that in his staff comments, that the requested zoning of R3 is actually higher than the future land use map. However, it is still consistent with the growth policy. Because the surrounding areas of the city are already R3, it's consistent with the neighborhood and it's consistent with the other requirements of the city. Loves Lanes is actually one of the higher capacity streets that we have just because it's signalized at Highway 89. And we will probably bring in portions of Miller Lane that surround it on the left side. So this again in the blue is the area that we're looking at zoning currently. The orange is the R3. These two large blocks are the Eagles Landing, and there's a new name for it that I can never remember. So that's where the current condos, 12-plex condos are. And this is looking right now, although this is not a subdivision review, it's looking like the owner would like to place 2 additional 8-unit buildings on the property in addition to the house that's already there. It's well within the limits of R3 zoning, so that's not an issue. Again, Matthew has reviewed it for consistency with the state law, and I will bring up the last, I won't make you watch me scroll, but you can see here, again, in the public hearing at the zoning commission on the February 8th meeting, they unanimously voted to recommend the proposed R3 zoning. And Matthew, as in the staff report, also recommends the R3 zoning for this parcel. And I will hold there for commission questions.
Commissioners, any questions? I'll ask a quick question. At a potential full build out, like at maximum capacity in R3, does our current infrastructure like water and sewer, for example, support this capacity?
It does. There are going to need to be some upgrades to the lift station that's right there by Matt's Meats on Rogers Lane. But those upgrades are going to happen independent of this particular development. Just with the amount of units that have gone in, we're starting to reach capacity there. Any further development south of that Rogers Lane or further to the west on Rogers Lane. Do you have anything else to add on that, Shannon?
No, I don't. Other than, we did an analysis on that Centennial lift station. So we have the capacity for the Laren property development.
Any other commissioner questions before, like clarifying questions before a motion? All right, we're ready for a motion on ordinance number 3028.
I'll make a motion that we pass ordinance number 3028.
I'll second.
Motion by Lyons and a second by Kale. And now we'll open up to public comment. If anybody wants to comment on this agenda item, please come off mute, raise your hand, name and address for the record. All right, I don't see anything, so public comments closed. And now we can move into commission discussion. And this is a reminder, thank you, Commissioner Schwartz. This is the first reading, and if this passes, there'll be another reading at a public hearing. Commissioners, did you have anything you want to, yeah, Commissioner Lyons.
I just want to say, in the staff report, it picks up on the nuance of there's kind of conflicting evidence in the growth policy that the future land use map indicates medium density residential. But then if you think about the growth policy more holistically, it recommends for infill mixed use development at the as an alternative to urban sprawl. I don't think anyone could look at the map and think that high density residential in that location could constitute urban sprawl. It's in a very, I'd say, environmentally affected part of the city. It's abutting the freeway, and there's all kinds of highway commercial development all around it. So environmentally, I think that's, that was one of the concerns that we heard about in the growth policy was expansion of the city at the cost to our environment. So that's not something that this development would incur. And in fact, having that kind of dense development close to the urban core of Livingston reduces the market demand for an outward expansion. So in that way, that's helping to satisfy one of the important elements of the growth policy. Second thing that I think is important to note here is that as Mr. Cardo suggested, the location of potential development at this area is that it's in a part of town that has a high level of transportation capacity. So you can't think of many places in town that would better accommodate this level of, or the potential level of density that would that a higher zoning classification would allow for. So transportation wise, and then if you think about work trips, about half of Livingston residents commute to Bozeman for work. And so if you think about the impact on the transportation network of a commute trip to Bozeman from this location, it's about as minimal as it possibly gets because you're right by the highway interchange. And then another issue that we think about is other daily trips like grocery and shopping and things like that. Again, this location is very close to those trip destinations, and as such would have a very minimal impact on the transportation network in Livingston. So even though the future land use map, which remember is a low level of granularity, we were thinking vision wise, and we weren't doing prescriptive zoning. We were thinking broader vision. While it does conflict with that to a certain degree, I think it does a really great job of satisfying the key elements of the growth policy. So for that reason, I strongly support this ordinance.
Thanks, Commissioner Lyons. Other commissioners? Vice Chair
Sure.
Kale.
Chair Newts, thank you. I thank you, Tori, for all of that. I think it's really helpful for all of us to hear that. And I agree to look at the overall picture of the growth policy and think about infill. This seems like a great spot for that. Also, just looking at the need for all different kinds of housing in our community. So to be able to add housing, in it more densely is great as well. So I think I agree with Commissioner Lyons. Thanks.
Other commissioners? Thank you. No, everybody's good. Okay, well, thank you, Commissioner Lyons. That was a great reflection, I think, on the growth policy and more. Thanks for bringing your whole self with your transportation expertise to the table. So if there's nothing else to discuss, commissioners, we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 3028. And we are ready for roll call, please.
Chair News,
Yes?
Vice Chair Kale,
Or
Commissioner Freeman,
4,
Commissioner Schwartz,
4.
Commissioner Lyons.
Or
Motion passes. Next up is ordinance number 3029, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Livingston, Montana, amending section 30.13 of the Livingston Municipal Code entitled Official Zoning Map of the City of Livingston by zoning parcels within the Montague subdivision north of Bennett Street, excluding Block 3, Lot 5-14, and Block 3, and a portion of lots 23 through 26, and including the adjacent island in the Yellowstone River located in the northeast quarter of Section 7, Township 2 South, Range 10 East, as mixed use, medium density residential and public as shown in Exhibit A. Mr. Cardus, before we jump in, that under medium density residential, should that say R3 or R2? I'm on page 72.
For this particular ordinance, I think that should say R2. I don't see any proposed R3 in this. There is some R3 and we'll discuss that a little bit, but it's not being zoned tonight. That's currently already zoned.
Okay, thank you so much for that amendment. So the medium density residential in the ordinance portion that I read is R2, not R3. Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Cardus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this one is a little more complicated than the other ones. I wouldn't say it's complex, but we'll try to go through it a little slower. It does involve several aspects of the growth policy, which I think Commissioner Lyons has already mentioned. Let me share my screen with you quick so we can discuss or at least show which areas we're talking about this evening. So this is a staff recommendation and we'll get into that in just a minute. But the areas outlined in blue are the areas that we're zoning this evening. So it does include the island, as it says in the resolution. It also includes this small little bit of public land here, and then this big hockey stick area. This is the R3 that I was going to talk about when the resolution talked about excluding certain parcels. Those are the parcels that it was talking about excluding there that were already annexed and zoned into the city prior to any action by the commission in any of these recent annexations and zoning. So again, this is the Montague subdivision. It was recently annexed, so it has no zoning currently. I'm going to flip over to the growth policy real quick. You can see in this case, in this area, it is mixed use. And then on the tip, you can see that it's pastoral. I'll go down so you can see the legend there. The pink is a mixed use and the green is the pastoral open space. And that is the area that we're looking at right here. So using that as a template, staff came up with the recommendation with most of the area being mixed use. However, the growth policy also talks about protecting riparian and stream beds and in the Yellowstone River specifically. So that's why the density was then decreased as we go out towards the river. This land is already already owned by the city and already we will zone it public. This land is also owned by the city on the island, and that would be zoned public, and there would be no development in those areas. But the R2 was suggested to reduce density as we moved out towards the river. The zoning commission looked at this, and I'm going to scroll down because they came up with a different recommendation. After discussion, they felt that the mixed use was maybe too much of an area, that they wanted to preserve some of the area on the north side as residential only, and they didn't want commercial enterprises in that area. So their recommendation from the zoning commission and the staff aren't going to go against the recommendation. We think it's also an appropriate zoning method is to leave mixed use on the southern area and then cut out the area here along Allspaw. And I believe that's Garnier. It's Garnier, and change that area to R2 on the top. And so the entire top portion of the hockey stick would be R2, and then mixed use from this area all the way down to Bennett Street, again, excluding that area that's already zoned R3. Staff report went through all of the issues as far as the extraterritorial jurisdiction FLUM. R2, while not recommended in the FLUM, does meet the other requirements of the growth policy, as we talked about, as far as protecting the riparian corridors. And then let me share my screen one more time. And you can see here on page 80, the public hearing was held in front of the Zoning Commission again on February 8th, where they expanded the R2 and left the mixed use on the south side. That was unanimously recommended to the City Commission with a 4-0 vote. And Matthew's recommendation believes that that designation also meets the requirements of the City of Livingston, the state statute, and does not constitute spot zoning. Again, I will leave it there for questions or comments from the commission.
Yeah, Commissioner Lyons.
So I recognize that we're seeing in our packet staff recommendation and zoning commission recommendation. The former, the staff recommendation was presented to the zoning commission, and is that correct? And then through that public process was amended, and therefore the ordinance represents the zoning commission recommendation and not the staff recommendation. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. That's my only clarifying question. So thank you.
Thank you. Other clarifying questions? I have 2 clarifying questions. My first is on page 77. It's about the staff report under objective 4.3.2. It states, it should be noted that currently the city has no water course or riparian setbacks or protections. So that was magical. You found it right away. So I'm wondering, is there a recommendation coming, since the R2 zoning apparently has, or the city of Livingston has no setbacks or protections in this area? Is there going to be a recommendation coming from city staff to address this issue?
I would expect there to be at some point. There's nothing currently being worked on. We're still working through a lot of the annexations and the zonings. And obviously without a planning director currently, it's going to slow things up a little bit. But I would expect at some point that would be something that you would see.
Okay, and there was one other that was noted in the staff report. It was, it's under 5.1.5.3, but it's actually on page 6, the very top. It says that the city has no ordinances to prevent, the city has no ordinances preventing manufactured homes or manufactured home parks from being redeveloped. So is there going to be that's another question. Are we going to get a staff recommendation on preventing redevelopment of manufactured homes or manufactured home parks? Is that another one you'd expect to see in the future?
I don't know if that one actually is. The city's kind of taken a different route with that one. We've kind of tried to work with groups like NeighborWorks and the parks themselves to see if they could become self-owned. And once self-owned, then that redevelopment pressure goes away because the residents own the lot themselves instead of a single owner being able to monetize that into a different development. So that's kind of the route we've gone with that. But Courtney's got her hand up to correct me.
Oh, thank you.
Not to correct, just to add to your concern.
Oh, I lost you. Courtney. Can you repeat it? You cut out for a minute. Can't hear you.
Let's try that. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So with regard to the riparian and watercourse setbacks and protections, because those are covered by the Conservation District as well as the Army Corps of Engineers, particularly around any watercourse that connects to the Yellowstone as well as the Yellowstone. Those are pretty well defined and protected, particularly considering the NRC looks at the Yellowstone River corridor. So layering city or municipal restrictions or protections on top of those would probably be exceedingly redundant.
Okay, thank you for that. And I just want to ask, Mr. Cardus, do you know, can you pull up the map about to show where the manufactured homes are? What Matthew was addressing when he wrote this, just so the new commissioners can benefit from having that information.
So I'm just going to pull this up on Google Maps because I think it's a little easier to see. And I'm going to switch it over to the aerial view. So here's our transfer station that you can see. So the area we're talking about is this L. There's the mobile home park is in this area right here. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see it better. It's basically, there are some privately owned manufactured homes, but this is the actual park itself with one owner in this area right next to Brookstone.
Thank you for pulling that up. And do you know if the conversations are happening about self-ownership in that area?
I know the city has had conversations with the owner and a few of the residents, but that's really going to have to be resident led. The city doesn't have a role in setting it up other than getting them connected with the correct people.
Okay, so have you gotten them connected to the correct people?
We've given them the information. I'm not sure if they've contacted them yet or not.
Okay, thank you. And I just wanted, regarding the floodplain, I just want to note that Matthew's report does say that the regulatory floodplain is extremely tight to the river in this location. So the NRDC and Army Corps of Engineers recommendations apply to the floodplain, not the area that we're talking about based on the definitions from Matthew here. So, okay, that's it for clarifying questions, it looks like, commissioners. All right, so we are ready for a motion on ordinance number 3029.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 3029.
Second.
Motion by Schwartz, second by Friedman, thank you. And now we'll move to public comment. So if you want to give comment on this item, hand up, name in the chat, name and address for the record, please. All right, I don't see any public comment. So public comment for this item is closed. And now we'll move into commission discussion. Commissioners, Commissioner Lyons.
So I think that this is another, well, as Mr. Cardo said, it is more complicated than the previous ordinances that we've discussed. But I do believe it's another example where the staff report got it right. And I would extend that to the map that was produced by staff over the amendments from the zoning commission. That being said, the amendments that were produced, or the second map, the second iteration that was produced by the zoning commission is one that reflects a public process. So it's one that has seen the light of day and has been influenced by the public that's participated in that process. So in acknowledging that, I would give my support to the second iteration over the first, while philosophically, I would prefer the first iteration that was done by staff. And I'll make one point on that, which is that I think a lot of times people think of zoning as a prescription of what is to come. And sometimes even, and this would be taking that to an extreme, a categorization of what exists. And that's not what zoning is. Zoning is a way that a city regulates the use of land through allowable uses. So, and the reason that's important is that what actually dictates what gets built and what will be there in the future is the market. So if a zoning regulation is more allows for more uses, that doesn't necessarily mean that that highest density of use will be built. The market will determine whether or not that's built. So, and I think that a lot of times people get that a little bit backwards, and they think that a higher degree of density in zoning is going to mean that tomorrow you're going to see apartment buildings, and that's not what's going to happen. If there is a demand in the market for more housing, then that might be the case. But those changes don't usually happen immediately with the change of the zoning regulation. So I just wanted to make that point. But again, because the zoning commission brought this to the public, their map is reflective of a satisfactory public process, and therefore I would endorse their map. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lyons. Other commissioners? Let's go around and see if other commissioners have anything, and then we'll come back to you. Schwartz, Freeman, Kale. All right, Lyons, you're up again.
Sorry, there was one point that I left out, which is that, again, allowing for higher densities and mix of uses, and that one's important here because that's what we're talking about, is a mixed use zoning designation. Let's start with higher densities, because a higher residential density is allowed within the mixed use zoning designation compared to an R2. One of I'd say the most salient theme throughout the growth policy is the fact that we're trying to avoid the expansion, the outward expansion of the footprint of the city. There was maybe not unanimous, but a strong consensus in support of avoiding an outward expansion of the footprint of the city, allowing for, again, not prescribing, but allowing for greater residential densities within the existing footprint of the city satisfies a whole number of goals and objectives of the growth policy that was adopted last year. Additionally, mixed use has the potential to limit the impacts of density by allowing for a diversity of land uses. So that would mean residential, commercial, retail within a given area, particularly reducing the transportation impacts of higher density. This is especially important on the north side of town, where there are currently only 3 crossings that bring you into the south side of town, where the majority of daily services are. So a mixed use development pattern would potentially reduce the strain of the impact of greater density on the north side, because it would allow for some of those trips to be satisfied there on the north side instead of requiring a trip across the train tracks. So I'm just making this point to indicate why I would be in support of a larger mixed use zone there on the north side. One, that's a part of the city that already exists. It's part of the current footprint of the city, and then it would reduce the impacts of a greater level of density there. So that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to chime in and say, I thought that it was interesting to the change between the staff recommendation and the zoning commission. And we sat through many months of public meetings discussing exactly these topics in a very general way on the planning board. Well, in a specific way on the planning board, but we weren't voting specifically on neighborhoods. I agree that mixed use provides a lot of variety for neighborhoods, and it sounds from the public from those 6 months of meetings or however many months it was that we discussed these items that there's a real need on the north side for diversity of services in neighborhoods, so that folks that live in those places can get what they need close to where they live. I do think that it makes sense to have the R2 nearest to the river based on those conversations as well, like decreasing the density closer to the river. I also think that we should be discussing a city plan for how we want to protect the riparian setbacks and protections. We do have, there's like animals migrating through that space. So that's not a joke, to be living close to bears and everything else that travels through the park and along the river behind the transfer station there. And that said, I do think that mixed use also makes sense. That I would like to hear from other commissioners on the staff recommendation versus the zoning commission wanting to reduce the mixed use and increase R2. If other folks would want to change it back to the staff recommendation, that's something that we can do when we can amend our motion, or if you want to keep as it's written with the zoning recommendation. Vice Chair Kale. I saw you come off mute.
Yep, Chair Newts. I'd say that I'm glad to see us starting to use the mixed use zoning. I know that was a new zoning district for us, a new designation, and I was glad to see that come into play and have the ability for us to start using it. I agree, it's really great to be able to give neighborhoods the opportunity to have services in their area, that they don't have to come out of their neighborhoods. They can walk or bike or a shorter drive without having to go across the track. So it'll be nice. I'm hopeful to see that maybe the market will make that work, and we'll see some retail and some other things go into that neighborhood. I agree with Commissioner Lyons, is that it would have been nice to see that mixed use designation be larger as the staff had recommended. But I also know that I didn't sit and watch that zoning commission meeting. I'm sure that there was public process that happened there and potentially comments from the folks that live in that area. And so while I would personally like to see that mixed use stretch out further, I feel like I don't want to step on the public process either, if that's what happened in that zoning commission meeting.
Thank you. Other commissioners? Schwartz, Freeman?
Go for it. Get the vote.
Yeah, Madam Chair, yeah, I agree with Carrie. Since that went through a public process, we did have, the public did weigh in on it. I would tend to favor the zoning commission's recommendation. Although we're splitting hairs here, I think, anyway, but there is mixed use, and I think that is very important. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you so much. Friedman, do you have anything that you want to add?
No.
All right. All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 3029 with an amendment for the R3 to be R2 to match the medium density residential. Do we need to amend the motion at all for that? Mr. Carter's? No? Okay.
No, I think that correction's already been made.
Okay,
So that'll stand as R2.
okay, thank you. All right, commissioners, are we ready?
Yes.
All right, roll call, please.
Chair Nudes,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kale,
Four.
Commissioner Freeman,
Or,
Commissioner Schwartz,
Or,
Commissioner Lyons.
Or,
Motion passes. We are nearly to the top of the hour, to 7 o'clock, I should say, and we have 6 resolutions to go. So let us take our break before we start in with our resolutions. 10 minutes, 10-minute break, and then we'll come back. Faith will put a timer up. If you're with the public, just keep an eye on the timer and we'll be coming back on screen in 10 minutes. See you soon.
Don't forget the addendum. There's 7 resolutions.
Oh, thank you. 7 resolutions. Thank you for that. Good thing we need a 10-minute break then. Welcome back. Is everybody ready? Commissioners, staff? Okay. So we left off, I should say, at resolutions. That's where we're picking up. We actually have 7. Thank you, Mr. Cardus. And I believe these are all single readings tonight. So the first resolution for this evening is resolution 5019, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Livingston, Montana, authorizing the city manager to sign a professional services agreement with TD&H Engineering for construction administration services for the 6th and 7th Street Water Project, and authorization to execute the agreement to include the use of contingency funds as deemed necessary. Mr. Cardus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So for these first 4, I don't have anything additional to add, so I'm just going to turn them all over to Shannon to explain them to you. And Shannon, take it away.
All right. Hello again, Madam Chair and members of the commission. Again, this is a professional services agreement with TD&H for construction management services for 6th and 7th Street Water. The primary function of this is the actual construction inspection that occurs on a daily basis when the contractor is doing the work. This does include the advertising and bidding that Matt and his team did for the project. And then as required by DEQ to provide as-built documents to DEQ and the city once construction is completed. So pretty standard for all of our construction projects in town. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And again, Matt McGee is on the meeting as well, and he could answer questions if I can't. Thank you.
Commissioners? I would love if we could just see the map of where the water project is, because I know that's a question community members often will ask, is where things are.
So, Madam Chair, again, this is 6th and 7th Street, and the project limits are Calendar Street to Geyser.
Thank you. Any other commission questions before we move into a motion? All right, how about a motion for resolution 5019?
I've been waiting to make this motion for a while. Since it affects my street, I make a motion to approve resolution 5019.
second,
Motion by Schwartz, second by Friedman. We'll move into public comment. So if you want to comment on this resolution, name in the chat or hand up. No public comment. Public comment's closed. We will move to commission discussion.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that 8-inch main to fill my swimming pool. No, just kidding. Yeah, it's been in the works for at least 8 years, so. And the street behind me on 7th, I mean, that's a patchwork quilt on that street. I mean, there must be couplings every 6 inches on that main, so it's long overdue. I'm glad that downtown got done first. That was more important than anything, but nice to be back on schedule a little bit, so. Great job. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks, Commissioner Schwartz. Other commissioners?
Chair Newts, I probably should have asked this question in the previous bit. From what I can understand, right, this was already budgeted. This was in the budget already. Was that correct? These projects?
Mr. Curtis, can you?
I can. So yeah, we've been budgeting this one. Well, this is like the 3rd time we budgeted it, but yes, it is in the current budget and it will pay through the water fund.
Other comments, questions? All right, well, thanks for keeping the public works projects rolling. The necessary and invisible part of our community that keeps us safe and healthy. So, well, hopefully it's invisible, right? I mean, it's visible. That's usually when there's a problem. So we're ready for roll call, please.
Newts,
Yep.
Vice Chair Kale,
Or
Commissioner Freeman,
Or,
Commissioner Schwartz,
Or,
Commissioner Lyons.
Or
Motion passes. Next up is resolution 5020, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Livingston, Montana, authorizing the city manager to sign a general services agreement with Askin Construction Incorporated for construction of the 6th and 7th Street Water Project, and authorization to execute the agreement to include the use of contingency funds as deemed necessary. Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is the actual construction versus the construction management that you just passed. But it's the same project, 6th and 7th Street water upsizing. And the cost, the low bid on this one came in at just over 1.4 million, which was a little higher than we expected, but with the rapidly rising costs of materials, it wasn't too surprising. So Shannon, please add anything that I missed.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike. As you have seen on the exhibit that Mike put on the screen, this is a project that we started back in 2016. This is the 3rd time we've bid that project. It is in drastic need. It's a 90-year-old 4-inch water mains. They break frequently, and it's going to be a huge benefit to our fire flows and actually infill that the growth policy is encouraging on this side of town. So actually upsizing a 4-inch to an 8-inch is exponentially more water. There's not going to be any more pressure, but certainly a lot more water volume and flow available for additional ADUs and fire protection in this part of town. We bid the job back in January. We had 3 contractors that bid the job, and Askin Construction was the low bidder at $1.246 million. We have while we have not worked with Askin Construction before, we do have familiarity with their project manager. He worked on the 2019 downtown capital improvement project. So he has familiarity working with Hal in our water department, Matt and TD&H, and we're confident that they can do a good job. Matt did do some follow-ups with some other municipalities and owners that Askin has worked with in the past few years and got good reviews from those. So we are here to recommend and hope, recommend your approval of this general services contract for the project. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Commissioners, does anybody have questions?
Chair Newt,
Yeah, Vice Chair Kale, go ahead.
just clarifying, Shannon, I heard you say it, and it does say in our packet 1.24 million or thereabouts. I thought I heard Mr. Cotto say just over 1.4. So I just want to make sure we're at that 1.246. That's correct.
Yeah, I should have said just over 1.24.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks. Other commissioners? I just have one question right now, and that is the resolution says the use of contingency funds. I guess I'm conditioned with these projects to see a line item for contingency funds like the last resolution, where there'll be a line that there'll be a set amount of wiggle room for the project, and I don't see that on here. So can Mr. Cardus or Shannon address what the amount of money we're actually voting on when it comes to contingency funds, or if we need to amend that resolution?
Sure. Contingency funds usually sit at 10%. So for the 1.246 million, it's about 124,000, just over.
I'm just gonna look at my agenda for a second. So other commissioners, do you have any more questions before we go to public comment, and then we can move into discussion? Okay, so we will need a motion on resolution 5020.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 5020.
Second.
Motion by Schwartz and a second by Friedman. Thank you. And now we'll move into public comment. So if anybody wants to comment on resolution 5020, please raise your hand, put your name in the chat. All right, no public comment. Public comment is closed. We can move into commission discussion. Commissioners, I would feel most comfortable amending this motion to have the contingency funds be spelled out at 10%. So we're all on the same page with the wiggle room. Just because in my experience as commissioner, that's pretty standard that we'll have like a set amount that city staff can work within, since unexpected things kind of happen. And that way they don't have to come back to us for a vote within a reasonable amount. What do other folks think? I don't want to just approve like a blank check, basically. I'd like to make sure we're all on the same page.
Madam Chair, I don't have a problem with that. Yeah, I would like to see it in writing myself. That way it's clear. Yeah, absolutely. No problem. I agree.
Okay. At the 10% as suggested. Okay. Other commissioners?
Yeah, standard 10%.
Okay. Thank
Chair
you.
Newt, I would agree with that too. That seems the most appropriate.
Okay. Other commissioners want to comment?
Good to me.
All right. So we'll need a motion to amend the original motion. We'll have to have a motion to set the contingency funds at 10% of the, let's see, what do they call it? Let me look. 10% of the budget. Does that work? or what language is best, Mr. Cardus?
I would say 10% of the estimated project cost.
Okay, do you want to make the motion,
Yeah,
Mr. Schwartz? Okay, thank you.
yeah, I'll make motion to amend resolution 5020. To specifically spell out a 10% contingency on the amount of the bid project.
Second,
Okay, so we have a motion to amend by Schwartz and a second by Kale. So now we're going to take a vote on the amendment and then we'll have another vote on the original. So this is just the vote on changing the motion to add the 10% for contingency funds. Does that language work for you, Mr. Cardus? What was stated, is that specific enough?
Yeah, it's specific enough for me. I think that's easy.
Okay, great. So roll call, please. Oh, wait, do I need to open it up to public comment before we vote on an amended motion?
I don't think so. I think that administratively just changes the motion. So then
Okay.
the public can discuss either the approved amended motion or the original motion if the amendment fails.
Right.
So we already had public comment. There was no comment. Do I need to open up public comment again? Is my question.
I think you can. It won't hurt anything. If you want to have the public comment on whether or not you should amend the motion.
Okay, so public comment. Now's your chance if you want to comment on the amended motion or the amendment to the motion. Just put your name in the chat or raise your hand. All right, no public comment, so public comment's closed. Now we'll move to roll call of the amendment.
Chair News,
For,
Vice Chair Kale,
4,
Commissioner Freeman,
4,
Commissioner Schwartz,
Or
Commissioner Lyons.
4,
so the motion to amend passes. Now we're going to vote on the original motion, which is to approve resolution 5020. Roll call, please.
Chair News,
For,
Vice Chair Kale,
4,
Commissioner Freeman,
4,
Commissioner Schwartz,
or
Commissioner Lyons.
4,
all right, thank you. Motion passes. Moving on to resolution C, resolution 5021, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Livingston, Montana, authorizing the city manager to sign a professional services agreement with TD&H Engineering for engineering services for the Regional Sewer Extension Project. Authorization to execute the agreement to include the use of contingency funds as deemed necessary. Mr. Cardus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me switch pages real quick and I will share with you the schematic for this project. So this is the sewer extension into both Green Acres and the Montague subdivision. Where you see dashed lines, that is existing infrastructure. And where you see solid lines, that is new infrastructure. The blue being 10-inch mains and the red being 8-inch mains. So this, again, is the construction management or construction administration for the project, not necessarily the actual project itself. This will be a sewer project versus a water project. And other than that, I will turn it over to Shannon to see if there's anything that I missed in the presentation.
All right, thank you, Mike. Madam Chair, so this exhibit in front of you was actually part of our submittal for the $2 million ARPA grant application. And, you know, I do want to acknowledge TD&H and Matt. I think this professional service agreement actually illustrates the value of the preliminary engineering report that we're going to present to you at the next meeting on Green Acres sewer extension. As you can see on sheet 148, this total project cost is about $3.34 million. And, you know, typically industry standard is design is at about 8 to 10% of that. And obviously the $165,000 schedule of hourly fees for this project is less than that. And I think I just want to illustrate that the $35,000 Green Acres PER and the work that Matt has done and some of the surveying and finding where research on existing septic tanks has come back and actually provided some value for this project. So to be at 5% of construction costs for design, I think is a good thing for our community and the residents in Green Acres and Montague. It is, you know, with this project, obviously there is a lot of public involvement, and obviously with the Montague residents in their newly annexation, there's you know, typically a lot of questions that they want to ask about city services process. So we want to make sure that we have adequate time in there for public meetings and educating people about the project as we move forward. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have, but we're excited to get started on design of the sewer extensions in this part of town.
Thank you, Shannon. Commissioners, do you have any technical or clarifying questions about this agenda item before we move to a motion?
Madam Chair, I don't know if this is the appropriate time. On that same page, Shannon, TDH proposes to do it on a time and material basis. But yet they're reducing the design, or is that just the design fee at 5%? I'm kind of confused a little bit on the language, that's all.
I apologize about that, Commissioner Schwartz. So basically their design total comes in at 5% of the construction cost, and industry standard is typically in that 8 to 10. This is an hourly contract, not to exceed. So obviously if Matt's team can get in and do the topographic survey for less than 35,000 in labor and equipment to do that, they will just bill us the actual work that they do to get full design and DEQ approval for this project.
Okay, so I understand time and material costs not to exceed 165, but then contingency funds come in. So are we looking at a typical 10% on that as well?
I think just given the scope of this project and that they're at 5%, obviously any of that contingency is at the discretion of myself and Mr. Cardus, the city manager. Obviously we have a good working relationship with TD&H, so Martha and I are going to be working closely with Matt on this and tracking the invoices as they come in, and I think the 10% is probably wise just to cover any unforeseens that maybe we don't realize at this time, but just assuring the commission that if it's not necessary, they're not going to bill or do the work. So.
Commissioner Schwartz, do you have anything else? You still have the floor.
That does it. That's okay for now. Thanks.
Thank you. Other commissioners? All right, well, I'll go then. Thank you, Commissioner Schwartz, for catching that the contingency fund wasn't listed for this one either, and asking that question. I also wanted to thank you, Shannon, for the public meeting during design. I think, you know, that's fantastic. And I know Commissioner Schwartz and I had the good fortune in the before times to go meet with the people in Green Acres when these conversations were just starting a couple years ago, 3 years ago now. So I really like that Public Works and staff is working to make sure that we're still engaging as promised to the people in this part of our community. So thank you so much for keeping that a priority. It's really wonderful. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for acknowledging that. And I just want you to reassure you and the commission that we've set a standard with our construction projects in Livingston where regardless if it's downtown or out in residential areas, we want to be very open and transparent, and we host weekly meetings for all of our projects and make ourselves available to answer any questions and provide schedules for the contractor so people can prepare accordingly. So it's been a model that's been very successful.
Wow, that's fantastic. How does the public find out about these weekly meetings? If it's something's happening in their part of town, do they just call you and Martha, or how should they find out?
Absolutely. So we do have, Faith does a great job. We have a projects page on our city website. In the case of Green Acres and Montag, we have built an email list with all the residents that have emails. We have addresses. We've done mailings. We've done public notices in the newspaper. And even Facebook. We've utilized social media as well. So we're fortunate to have several forms of media to get the word out. And in the case of 6th and 7th Street, you know, we have addresses for all those residents. And even if we get to a point where we can go door to door on a small 6-block project like that, I think that's a benefit as well.
That's just fantastic. Hats off to you and the Public Works Department for going the extra mile. I think we've seen how meaningful that is to the people in Livingston. So thank you so much for taking extra steps to keep our community informed. Thank you. Other commissioners, do you have any comments or questions for Shannon at this time? Okay, so we're ready. Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Friedman.
We talked about this probably a dozen years ago about Green Acres, and probably a dozen years before that. And to get this done the way we're doing it is one big feather. And I want to thank Shannon and Mike for going through this. But everything was all negative, and all of a sudden the sky opens up and we have blue sky, and it's a wonderful to do it for our community. So I commend everybody who was involved with us. Great job.
Thank you, Commissioner Friedman, for acknowledging that. Thank you. Other commissioners? All right, so we're ready for a motion, and just remember, if you want to make the motion amended from the beginning, that is a possibility rather than going through the 2-step amendment process. So I'm ready for a motion.
Chair Newts,
Mhm.
I'll make a motion to pass resolution 520 with the amendment to contingency funds of 10% of the estimated service fee of $165,000.
Can I just clarify, did you mean resolution 521?
Hold on, let me look at my agenda. Yes, I did. Resolution 521.
Okay,
You mean resolution 5021?
5021. Thanks, Commissioner Schwartz.
thanks. Thank you. All right, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so a motion by Kale and a second by Friedman. I'm just going to repeat the motion to be clear. So resolution number 5021 with an amendment for 10% contingency fund of the $165,000 total. Okay. Now we're ready for public comment. So if you want to give comment on this agenda item, please raise your hand or put your name in the chat and share your name and address for the record. No public comment. Public comment is closed for this agenda item, so we'll move into commission discussion. Commissioners, does anybody want to comment?
Just nice to see it. Let's move forward faster than we had anticipated. Having the ARPA funds available and stuff really makes a big difference, and should make a big difference to the SID in the long run. So good job, Shannon. I'm looking forward to seeing this move forward.
Other commissioners? Yeah, I think Commissioner Schwartz and Commissioner Friedman said it all. I think this is a good step forward for this part of our community. And hats off again to Public Works and staff for working together for this big project and keeping our community engaged for the last few years really on it. So any other comments? Otherwise, we'll move into a vote. All right, we did public comments, so roll call, please.
Commissioner Nudes,
4.
Vice Chair Kale,
4.
Commissioner Freeman,
4.
Commissioner Schwartz,
4.
Commissioner Lyons.
Or
Motion passes. Next up is another resolution, resolution number 5022, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Livingston, Montana, authorizing the city manager to sign a professional services agreement with TD&H Engineering for engineering services for the stormwater preliminary engineering report, authorizing the city manager to execute the agreement to include the use of contingency funds as deemed necessary. Mr. Cardus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as Chair Newt said, this is a preliminary engineering report. So it's a PER for stormwater, which is a great step forward in looking at the system of stormwater versus looking at it from place to place. So Shannon, please go ahead and present this item.
Thank you, Mike. Madam Chair, last but certainly not least is a professional services contract before you with TD&H for the stormwater PER. Again, kudos to Lisa. I think we as a community enjoy spending 50 cents on the dollar through grant awards for exciting projects like this. And I just really appreciate the commission's support in the proactive thinking of Livingston and our community and getting out ahead of any stormwater challenges that we're certainly going to be involved with as we approach a 10,000 population and are required by DEQ to meet the MS4 stipulations. This is going to be an exciting document for TD&H to work on. They are going to identify some high priority projects in and around town. I think we all know the railroad track certainly creates a barrier from the north side to the south side. Those that love our streams and rivers know that all of our stormwater in Livingston finds its way to either Fleshman Creek, Billman Creek, and ultimately the Yellowstone River. So we want to make sure that we take care of our stormwater in the best manner possible. So I'm very excited to have TD&H move forward with this and hopefully in 6 or 7 months be able to present the preliminary engineering report to the commission later this summer, early fall. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, do you have any clarifying questions? You know, Shannon, just for the benefit of the newer commissioners, I think it could be nice if you could just touch on the MS4 requirements and why. I mean, I know you've been educating the commission since I've been a commissioner about this requirement for a population size, like population of 10,000 or more for communities in Montana. Can you just touch on that for the new commissioners, what that what that requirement means for the city of Livingston?
Absolutely. So, first of all, hats off, Martha. I think put together a wonderful PowerPoint last year, and we presented that to the commission, and I ultimately presented that to Park County Environmental Council during a presentation, which was great. But the MS4 requirement has a population threshold of 10,000 people. So Belgrade has actually entered that, and it requires us to use best management practices and actually treat all of the stormwater before it enters our receiving stream. So again, kudos to Livingston and previous commissions, but all of our stormwater on Main Street and part of Callender and Lewis goes through a storm scepter down near the Livingston Enterprise. And it is actually the sand, oil, and grit material from the stormwater is actually separated from that storm scepter before it's discharged into Fleshman Creek. And once we hit that 10,000 threshold, we will have to put some sort of preventative measures on treatment anywhere our stormwater is discharged into the lagoon, the Yellowstone River, Billman Creek, Fleshman Creek. So, unfortunately, nothing in infrastructure is cheap these days. The storm scepter unit that we have in Main Street was about $110,000 unit back in 2019 when we installed that. So, sorry for the long-winded answer, but I hope everybody understands the importance and the regulatory requirements that will be in our future.
Thanks for going over that, Shannon. I appreciate it. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Shannon before Vice Chair Kale?
I would just say that I had the pleasure of attending that community conversation that Shannon presented on with stormwater last year, and I learned a lot. So thank you, Shannon. I thought that was super informative and helpful. So I took that information forward as I read through this. So thank you very much.
All right. If there's no other commissioner questions, let's move to a motion for resolution 5022.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 5022 and with no amendments, everything's spelled out on this one.
I'll second.
Motion by Schwartz, second by Kale. Thank you. And we'll move to public comment. So if public wants to comment on resolution and the exciting resolution 5022, now is your chance. All right, public comment is closed. Please don't take that as a sign of people not loving this, Shannon. Because we know stormwater is dear to your heart, but that doesn't sound right. We know this is an important part of public works and public works priorities. So I would love to hear if commissioners have anything they want to discuss about this.
So, Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I've been very long-winded tonight, and I apologize, but I have one more thing that came to mind, just to hopefully benefit the new commissioners. So the significance of a preliminary engineering report, they are written in a format that makes us eligible to apply for state grants through the Cole Endowment, Treasure State Endowment, DNRC, RRGL. So really the value of this document is twofold in the fact that it provides our community a lot of great information about our stormwater and the challenges we have and planning financially for those improvements in the future. But it also really helps Lisa and our grant writers to put together an application that has all that technical information in there, and it really streamlines the process. So we do get, I hope with this, and if we do look at creating a stormwater utility and we meet the state's target rates for stormwater utility, we will automatically be eligible for construction grants for the projects that this identifies. So again, I apologize for interrupting. I want everybody to understand the significance of a PER.
Thank you so much, Shannon. Commissioners, do you want to discuss anything? I want to say, I think that I really appreciate the thought Public Works is putting into our water utilities. We live in a state where not all communities have a consistent, reliable source of water, which is kind of hard to believe since it's so reliable for us. And so looking at it from beginning to end, I think is important, like from the tap to when we release it back from our responsibility. So I really, really am grateful that Shannon has been working on this for years to educate the commission and the community about the importance of being proactive and being prepared and not waiting to deal with it till after we hit the 10,000 person mark, when it would be much harder to pay for it and plan for it if we were doing it in a reactive way and potentially being fined or whatever the DEQ does to municipalities. So thank you, Shannon. And thank you, staff, for coordinating to make this sustainable for our community. It's a big deal, I think. Other commissioners? All right, so we have a motion to approve resolution 5022 with no amendments. We're ready for a roll call, please.
Chair Nudes,
For,
Vice Chair Kale.
For.
Commissioner Freeman,
4.
Commissioner Schwartz,
4.
Commissioner Lyons.
Or
motion passes. Thank you so much for being with us tonight, Shannon. Your participation is always appreciated by the commission, so thank you. And until next time.
We can go to bed now.
All right, so next up is joint resolution number 2022-01, a joint loan resolution of the city of Livingston and Park County, Montana, approving a loan in the amount of $50,000 together with interest thereon at the rate of 1.625 per annum on the unpaid balance of the principal until paid, from the Aeronautics Division of the Department of Transportation of the state of Montana to the city of Livingston, Montana and county of Park, Montana, for the purpose of construction of taxiways at Mission Field Airport in Livingston, Montana, providing for the repayment of the loan terms thereof. Mr. Cardus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this item was tabled last meeting. So I think technically we need a motion to pick it up from the table. And if we do that first, then I'll go ahead and present the rest of it.
Thank you so much for that friendly reminder. So if the commission is ready to move forward on a discussion, we will need to make a motion to untable it. So that's different than a motion to approve. It would just be a motion to untable joint resolution 2022-01. So do we have a motion to untable?
I make a motion to untable or bring back to the table resolution 2022-01.
Second.
So there is a motion by Schwartz and a second by Friedman. Thank you. Roll call. Wait, before roll call, do we need to open it up to the public before we vote on taking it from the table or putting it
Not
back
to
on?
remove it from the table.
We're moving it from the table.
Yeah.
Okay.
So no public comment necessary to begin the discussion of something.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So we're ready for a roll call, please.
Sorry.
Chair Nudes,
For,
Vice Chair Kale.
For.
Commissioner Freeman,
Four.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Or
Commissioner Lyons.
Or,
Motion passes. All right, so now, right, Mr. Cardus, now you can have the floor.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. So in the last meeting, the commission requested a little more information on this item. So the item itself is a guarantee of a loan, but I thought it was a good opportunity to go back and talk about airports in general and maybe give some history on how we ended up where we are. Interestingly enough, the history starts in 1950. That's when the first joint resolution was passed to create a joint board. At the time, the city had Zolman Field, which was up on the flats, which was actually named after one of our police officers that was killed in the line of duty. He was shot after after he and the chief decided not to go after a criminal or a employer who shorted someone 50 cents. So he was shot over that and killed. So the airport was named after him. At that point, the county and the city kind of moved the airport to Mission Field, where its current location is. Zolman Field went away. But this airport board has been in existence since 1950. It is not like most of our other city boards. Most of our city boards are advisory boards, and they recommend. This is actually an administrative board, so it has jurisdiction over the airport. Specifically, it has the jurisdiction over planning, acquiring, establishment, development, construction, enlargement, improvement, maintenance, equipment, operation, regulation, protection, and policing of all the joint airports, landing fields, and air navigation facilities established or controlled by the county and the city, and over airport hazards as approved by state law. So this is a little different board than most of the boards we deal with. This is an administrative board that has jurisdiction over those items. The last joint resolution was passed in 2014. That is the current joint resolution that has extended the airport board to its current extent, I guess, where it's currently over. I do want to share a couple of things with you. So we talked about the jurisdiction the airport board has. One of the ways that they plan for the development, construction, enlargement, improvement is through the master plan. And I'm going to share that on the screen. It's also in your packet. So this is referred to as the airport layout plan set, or sometimes the airport master plan. You can find it on the county's website for the airport board. Just a quick review of it. You can see this is not a diagram of the entire field, although the entire field can be seen here in the inset. The gray areas you look at are the existing areas. The blue areas are the future areas, which is one of the areas they're looking to expand right now. And then ultimately, the purple areas would be added to the airport as well, to include a cross runway, a 927 runway for crosswind days that don't allow landing on the current runway. So this is one of the items that guides the airports board's expansion. So the loan in this case is to add these taxiways in blue here. It does not yet add the apron area, but it does add these two areas of blue taxiway that were considered. So that's kind of what guides the airports board as they move forward. They do have some rules and regulations that again outline that authority and give some rules on how the airport will be constructed. And then finally, so I'm going to scroll down to that and share that as well. And in this screen share, you can see the areas we were talking about. So I'm going to blow it up just a little bit. There you go. So this is the proposed new taxiways that hook to this taxiway and hook to the apron here. You can see this is the future apron that we saw in the master plan. That's not a part of this project. And this connection is also not a part of this project. If you go back up and look here, that is a future planned addition to the airport. So that's a better overview, I think, of where the airport board came from, which is, it is allowed under state law. It's one of the ways that it was created through joint resolution, the latest joint resolution being passed in 2014. Some of their authorities as an administrative board versus a advisory board, their guidance as far as what they look at. We do have for tonight on for you to, if you have questions, Matt Whitman, the Public Works Director from the county, was kind enough to join us to answer any questions that you might have on the project. And we also have a couple members of the airport board if you would like to ask the board members any questions. And with that, I will turn it over to the commission.
Thank you so much for that. I do want to hear from folks, but before that, I want to disclose that we did have a public meeting today, which was noticed and advertised, and a majority of the commission was able to go. So thank you for the invitation from our city board representative, Steve Kuntz, to help set that up. It was great. And Vice Chair Kale, I was hoping you could do like a disclosure to the public just to share like what we discussed today, or not so much what we discussed, but what we learned about before we move into hearing from Matt and board members.
Sure, thanks, Chair Newt. I'm just going to give a few highlights of what we learned. And again, I would just like to thank Steve and Matt and Clint and Commissioner Tinsley and the other members of the board that were there to chat with us today. It was nice to go and learn some new things and get on the ground and see what's happening out there at the airport. Commissioner Friedman and Chair Newt and myself and Commissioner Lyons got there a little late, but we were all there to attend. Some of the kind of high points, I wrote down some bullet points. Commissioner Tinsley invited the city to have a commissioner back on the airport board so that if we wanted to put someone back there so that we could stay better informed, he invited us back, and that was a lovely invitation. We learned that there is a lot happening at the airport, and we may be seeing more things coming down the pike about things happening at the airport. So that was a good heads up for all of us. Some of the land leases have already been leased out along some of where those new taxiways might be, and are kind of already scooped up by some of our Park County property owners already, the folks that have leased those land sites for potential hangars. That's already happening. We also learned that there is a private individual that would like to build a much bigger hangar that would be for much larger planes. At the airport, it wouldn't be within that area. I don't know, on the map of the blue where we'd seen that expansion for this loan. This private individual would pay for the new infrastructure needed around that hangar, which would mean putting in a taxiway and an extended apron. That person would pay for all of that, as well as whatever hangar they decided to build. And then the airport would then maintain that infrastructure. Sounds like there's potentially areas 2, maybe 4 of those hangars could potentially go in. I think it was more like 2. Matt, you can correct me later if I'm as we move along, that could fit at the airport. Those hangars, the smaller hangars, do produce land fees of 9 cents per square foot per year, and then property taxes are assessed on the hangar buildings themselves. That money goes to that property tax money goes to the county. 1/3 of it that goes to the county, and 2/3 of it goes to the school district. Let me see. I'm just looking to see. And one of my questions was, I felt like it kind of from last week, and so we did learn that the airport can only grow as large as we're looking on that layout map that Mr. Carter showed us in the beginning. It can't grow past that, particularly because of some geographic or constraints. There's bluffs and cliffs and things that the airport can't get much bigger, or the runway can't get much longer. Highlights of a very uninformed person about airports, but that's some of the things we learned today.
Thank you for making the list, Vice Chair Gale, of the high points that were discussed. Other commissioners, is there anything, this is your chance, if there's anything that Carrie missed or that you would add that I shouldn't say that we discussed, because we weren't discussing, we were more receiving.
Commissioner
Okay.
Chair, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Friedman.
I would like to see the percentage of people that have lived in Livingston right now and past people that lived in Livingston ever been to the airport. It'd have to be a very large number. There's just no, unless you really make a specific trip to go to there. I worked on the airport when I got here many, many years ago, and I was a little bit familiar with it. And it's so good to see that we can utilize it. And we've got people right now that are very attached to it. And I think that's the biggest thing, that they're attached and it can grow and it can be a big part of what our society is. But unless you happen to make a turn at the right place, you'll never see the airport. So it's very important. And I appreciate the reception we got from the county today. It was very good. I yield.
Thank you. Yes, it was a really nice reception we received. So we're still in the sort of information phase of this agenda item. We don't have a motion yet. So I want to give Matt, thank you so much for being here, a chance to add anything that needs to be added to this discussion item. Thanks for being here, Matt.
Oh, thank you for having me. I think you guys have hit most of the high points. The only thing I would add is that most of this project is being paid for by FAA money. Montana Aeronautics is a state agency instead of a federal agency. They pay, or this loan pays for 50% of the remaining match that we have to pay. And that 50% loan should be covered by the increase in land lease fees we see up there. So there won't be any reduction in the maintenance we can do to other parts of the airport, that sort of thing. Yeah, and it should be a good improvement up there.
Thank you, Matt. And I want to now acknowledge that we do have our two city appointees to the board, Steve Kuntz and Katie Weaver here. So I wanted to give you a chance if there's anything you wanted to add information-wise that the commission should know. Steve, do you want to go first? If there's anything you want to add for us to know. And you're on mute, Steve. I can't hear you. Faith, can you help him get off mute?
Mute. Okay, there. How's that?
We can hear you.
Got
Hi,
it.
Steve.
Well, thank you. And I'd also like to salute all you commissioners that showed up today. You've asked some very excellent questions, and we were delighted to have you there. It was a fun meeting. And we look more forward to more interaction in the future. And I think you guys have pretty well covered the important parts, and anything specific I can help with, why, sure, let me know.
Thank you.
I yield.
Thank you, Steve. And Katie, it's nice to see you. It's been a while since we've seen you at a meeting. Do you have anything that you want to add before the commission moves forward talking about this agenda item?
I don't. I'm the only non-pilot on the airport board. So like many of you, I'm in the midst of a steep learning curve. So just here to show support, and if there's any questions I can't answer, happy to.
Thanks for being here, Katie. Okay. So commissioners, any other questions before we move to a motion?
Yeah, I'll just make a quick comment. I apologize for not being there. Although I am very familiar with the airport, having served on the board within the last couple of years, and very well aware of what's going on with the airport. So, but I was busy, but I am familiar with the airport. Thank you. I yield.
Yeah, Commissioner Schwartz, it was such a last minute putting it together to try to get it noticed in time. So I'm surprised we had as good of turnout from the commission as we did. And you were missed, but nobody faults you for not being able to make it, that's for sure. So thank you. All right, no other commission comment. Otherwise, we will move to a motion. Okay.
Oh, somebody beat me? Oh, okay, I'll do it. I make a motion to approve resolution. Yeah, joint resolution 2022-01.
Second.
There's a motion by Schwartz and a second by Friedman. And now we will open it to public comment. So if you want to give comment on this item, please raise your hand or put your name in the chat. And when you're called on, just say your name and address for the record. Hi, Austin, you're up. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Austin Tim. Last name is spelled T-I-M-M, as in Mike. I live in Clyde Park, P.O. Box 363. And just to introduce myself real briefly for those of you who don't know me, some of you do. I'm a local pilot. I make my living flying airplanes, doing some other things. I previously worked as an air traffic controller in the FAA and kind of got tired of working for the man. So I left and I'm back home in Montana and life is good. I just wanted to also kind of apologize. I had planned to be at that meeting this afternoon, just as a member of the public, to touch base and try to show some support, answer some questions if possible. But I was actually at an airplane 11,000 feet over the top of Livingston, ironically, while you guys were on the ground talking. So that's just the way that worked out. Sorry, I couldn't be there. I would like to just point out that I'm happy to see some movement. I think there's a really strong aviation culture and history in Montana and even in Park County, even though it doesn't always show on the surface. That culture is there. They think that the everyday people in the community benefit from it, even when they don't understand the benefit they're receiving. In many cases, for example, like the opportunity to have a reliable access to medevac services. That's something that people don't think about until they need it. No, that's not really what we're talking about here tonight, but I just want to kind of emphasize to everyone that aviation does have value, and even though we don't always consider that. I guess kind of in the big picture, I just really want to voice support for Gabe Chandler of Yellowstone Air Service. I think he's doing a fantastic job of running the airport. Beyond any shadow of a doubt, I've seen a number of improvements in everything from customer service and the availability of fuel and services to the reliability of the runway and the maintenance of the taxiways and snow events. I'm hearing that echoed by a lot of other local pilots. Believe it or not, other people do fly in and out of that airport, like myself, and we're all seeing good movement on that front. And so I think that a lot of people right now are moving in the right direction. I think their hearts are in the right place. And I really encourage the city of Livingston, even though I'm not a city resident, I encourage the city of Livingston to take these proposals seriously and try to work with the stakeholders, particularly in the private sector, people like Gabe, and kind of be part of the conversation, because I can tell you that I'm from a fourth generation aviation family. I've traveled all around the world. I've seen a lot of things in this industry. And I think it's valuable to be proactive and to ask questions, and to try not to control the narrative so much as to take part in it. Anyone who wants to look over the hill to Bozeman, you can see for yourself what happens when you don't, involve people in the conversation. You can quickly find yourself getting throttled, wrong place, wrong time, just due to lack of proactivity. So I just encourage everyone on the city commission, county commission, airport board to just keep working with people like Gabe and anyone else around here who has, a little bit of something to add. I guess that's really the extent of what I have to say. I appreciate everyone's willingness to try to make a small town airport better. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Austin, for coming and sharing with us. And hopefully you saw us wave to you on the ground. So.
Believe it or not, I was looking. I did look out the window. I didn't see anybody. It's kind of bumpy.
It was windy today. I bet it was bumpy. So is there any other public comment? Just go ahead and put your name in the chat, or you can come off mute if you're having a hard time putting your name in the chat or raising your hand.
Hi, yeah, I'd like to speak. This is Ann.
Yeah, hi,
Buckley.
Ann.
Yeah, I tried to.
Can you just say your name?
Hi, I tried to put the thing in there. Yeah,
That's okay.
I just
Can you
took
just
it
say
off.
your name and address? Start with your name and address. For
Sure.
the record,
So
please. Thank you.
my name is Ann Buckley, And my address is 5 Fox Run, Livingston, but I'm not in town. I'm outside of town. And, I was at the tour today and was able to go be a observer at the airport board meeting yesterday. I actually did try and contact the airport board before last year. It didn't get a response through the city channels or the county channels, which was unfortunate, but that's okay. The lines of communication started now, which is great. As I mentioned earlier, Shannon mentioned yesterday, I'm a neighbor in the airport, and so part of the folks directly impacted by increased traffic at the airport, and not opposed to growth at all. And certainly not a NIMBY person, because I really believe that prudent attention to the airport is super important. It can be, it's an important part of the community. It's a historic part of the community. Yet also, I think it's really important. Katie, I'm really glad to hear that you're on the airport board and yet also not a pilot yourself, because I think it's really important to have members of the public and members of Park County and the city who are stakeholders in this conversation, who aren't necessarily pilots or people who are going to be directly benefiting, unless maybe it's a medevac situation from the airport. And so what I would like to just request from the city is you consider these resolutions, which might be, just small parts, but also as you're looking at the airport as an asset, is thinking about who benefits. There are people who are the pilots who benefit and people who are the passengers who benefit, but there are also the people, a larger group of people in Park County and the city who aren't necessarily having direct access to those services, who weren't necessarily going to be employees benefiting, and in terms of impact and noise, utilities, impact on other social benefits, environmental benefits, just as you have been talking about earlier in your meeting today about the impact on the river and the impact on careful growth and growth planning. I would just really encourage you all to take the airport into consideration when you think about growth planning and how it affects everybody who participates in this public good, either as neighbors or as aviators or as people who might be impacted by other increased traffic. Growth and development are important, but planned growth and development, just as you all have looked at it within the city. So that's what I just like to put out there. And there was something else and I can't think what it was. But anyway, thank you again for organizing the tour today. That was super interesting and super helpful, and appreciate it. Thank you. I'm going to take myself off the screen again because, why look at somebody you don't need to? So thank you.
And thanks so much for your comment, and thanks for being there today. I hope that you feel like you made some good connections today, and there's people at the city and on the airport board and the county commission and staff that you can reach out to when you have questions.
Thank you. Actually, sorry, I remember what I was going to say. I'm sorry to interrupt. Just what Commissioner Tinsley had said, inviting you all back to have a ex officio position again on the board. It sounded like that's a very important idea. And I know I heard from another one of the board members saying that it would be great to have that city presence on the board, just as an ex officio position. So just wanted to underscore that since I'd heard it from other people as well. Sorry, I'll go away now. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Ann. Are there other folks that want to give public comment on this agenda item? Sarah, can you just say your name and your address, please, for the record? Thank you.
Absolutely. Sarah Stans, 217 Southeast Street. I am here in Livingston, and I went on the tour today, and so thank you for organizing that in short notice. We met a lot of gracious hosts with the board and operators and managers at the airport, and I am a Livingston born and bred that had never visited the airport, probably for a good reason, because my visit would probably be a life flight or a medevac or of that nature. I am coming in completely ignorant of our airport, so we learned a lot, even what the difference between a small, medium, and large plane meant for the airport. Some of the surprising things were that some of those planes, even though that they're quite small, that they can go pretty far. It was pretty interesting that you can do a direct flight anywhere in the United States and still land. in Livingston Mission Airport. And I guess I have more questions than I have answers or comments. But when I think about the growth, of the airport and the asset that it is, and I think I've heard that a lot, and how do we take care of this asset and, make sure that we're maintaining it, and that it's serving the most amount of people. And my question is, how do we ensure that we are capturing wealth and economic opportunities as a result of this asset? There were some ideas that were thrown around and we only had an hour, but what are the services that Park County residents can provide, or what are just some of the opportunities besides maintaining and providing infrastructure and providing services for the few that use it? But can we pull out that donut a little bit and focus on and capture through policy, probably not, or regulation or other incentives that that citizens and locals could benefit from? That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. Are there other people from the public that want to comment on this agenda item? I am not seeing anyone else. Okay, so let's close public comment. Public comments closed. And now we'll move on to commission discussion. Before we get too deep into discussion, commissioners, I would like to get some of the things addressed, hopefully by Matt Whitman, that were brought up from the public. Because he did touch on that today, but I don't think everybody probably heard it. So it'd be good to have that reiterated in a public meeting. So Matt, some of the things that were brought up, it sounds like you have some knowledge of regarding impacts to utilities and secondary impacts to the community, maybe like transportation or noise, some of the things that one of the people in the public brought up tonight. Do you feel comfortable addressing those?
Sure.
Thanks.
Because the airport doesn't really have water or sewer services, that's not something that's a big impact. One of the big things is I don't foresee this actually increasing the use of the airport. We already have a lot of pilots that live in the community or larger users of the airport. A lot of those users actually land, take off, or land, drop someone off and take off and go over to Bozeman. Then they hangar over there and fuel up there. That all brings economic development to Bozeman while using Park County and Livingston infrastructure. And so you just don't see any positive benefits from them if they're not staying here, fueling up here, using a hangar. So I don't see negative impacts on our infrastructure just because most of the people that use the airport are already there. We don't foresee this as being a new draw for Park County and Livingston.
Thank you for speaking to that. I believe another thing that was mentioned today too is that in some cases it would actually decrease flights because people wouldn't have to land and take off to go park somewhere else, that they would just land and stay and they wouldn't take off again until they're actually leaving, as opposed to coming and going so they could park their airplane someplace else.
Correct, yeah.
So I thought that was just more information for the commission to consider. Okay, commissioners, do you have any other clarifying questions based on public comment before we move into deliberation? Otherwise, let's deliberate. Yeah, Commissioner Lyons.
I just realized it's not a clarifying question, so I can wait till deliberation.
I think we can move into deliberation since we've already done a round of clarifying question if everybody's ready.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're ready for deliberation, commissioners, amongst the five of us. Who wants to go first? Commissioner Lyons.
One thing that wasn't clear to me 2 weeks ago when this issue first came up was the fact that there are 2 city representatives on the decision-making body of the airport board. So we're kind of using this loan as a touch point for the city commission to consider our perspective on the development of the airport. But as I understand it, the way that the system was designed is for our touch point is actually through our appointments onto that airport board. That being said, I appreciate the comment from the public about having representation on the board of non-aviators, and that's not to say that I don't appreciate the perspective of the aviators. In fact, if I were an aviator, I would also be a fourth generation aviator. It runs in my family as well. But I think that point was important because, you know, that population stands to benefit the most, while we all stand to deal with the impacts. Considering impacts and benefits of transportation investments is actually my job. And so I very much appreciate that point. And I was also very relieved to find out that we have 2 city appointees on this decision-making board. I think that covers the majority of my thinking on this so far. So thanks to the public and our city representatives on that board for your work in considering how development of the airport will impact the community beyond just those that enjoy the benefits of that infrastructure.
Thank you, Commissioner Lyons. Other commissioners?
Chair Newt.
Yeah, Vice Chair Kale, go ahead.
So I thought we learned a lot today, and I was really appreciative of that tour. And that being said, that I felt like so many of us, not just the 2 new commissioners, didn't really know much about the airport, you know, that there hadn't been a lot of communication, and I felt like we were all sort of learning for the first time. You know, so I really think that we may need to reconsider putting a commissioner back on the airport board, or some other way of making sure that we're getting information from the board so that we do know what's happening, so that when we are more well-informed when other projects or decisions like this come up before us. And I think that as we look at, and we have been so thoughtful about looking at the growth within Livingston with our growth policy and all the other things that we're doing, I think it's important that we as a city pay attention to what's happening at the airport as well, and can help, you know, think about how that growth, and that it is thoughtful and it's working for all of us in the city, and not just, you know, for the few that are using it, but we're looking at it as a whole. And obviously it's in the county as well, but you know, we're part of that board. We run part of it or half of it, and I just think it's really important that we stay involved at this point. I think that, you know, I had mentioned 2 weeks ago that we really needed to look at any unintended consequences that could happen from the growth of the airport, and I think that we need to keep that in our thoughts as we move forward with any of these decisions, is what those unintended consequences might be as our community grows and we see this huge growth coming towards our community.
Thank you. Other commissioners? Commissioner Schwartz, were you ready?
Yeah, I'm concerned that we're getting away from the resolution at hand, which is approving a loan to resurfacing and adding taxiways. I don't want to get off into the weeds on this, and we can have a time to have that discussion on rewriting the compact and stuff like that. And I think that would be better suited for a different time. We could go on and on about the growth of the airport and how we want to see it managed and stuff like that. But not to be picky, but I want to kind of stick with, what's on the table here as far as the resolution. And I was hoping, the meeting today up there would, help define the fact that there is finite growth up there. And with the geographics that are involved. Serves a small segment of the community. I understand that as well, but it is, restricted, by geographics on how big it can get. But I'd love to have these conversations for another time. And we're at that point where I think we need to look at, the compact with the county on the airport and board arrangements and stuff like that. But I'd like to get back at hand to the business of the resolution. Thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner Schwartz, I think that's great. Thinking about it on a future agenda where it's noticed and we're properly discussing it. Thank you for that. Commissioner Friedman, did you have anything that you wanted to say? You're good? Okay. Well, I just want to thank you, actually, Commissioner Friedman. I think it was last year that you mentioned the importance of getting out to places together as a commission before we make decisions. And so I want to thank you because that was in my mind when Steve Kuntz called and invited me out. I was happy that we could all go together and learn together. So thanks for expressing that back at a previous public meeting so that I could think of it. And thank you so much to Steve Kuntz and Katie Weaver. I appreciate not only that you're on the airport board, but I appreciate that both of you have a good understanding of our community and the challenges we're facing beyond just the airport. So I know that you carry that with you when you go into those airport board meetings. And we're so grateful for your service and your willingness to serve Livingston on this board. So thank you. Everything I want to say, I think has already been said. I think Commissioner Schwartz said it pretty directly that growth is limited by the land. There's only so big that the runways can get and so many hangars that can be put down because the land just doesn't allow anything bigger in that space, which means there's only a certain size plane. According to what we learned today, it sounds like the biggest planes that can fly in that airport are medium-sized planes, which are apparently 15 to 20 people. From what we learned today, as not being a plane person myself. So I think that was good information to know that growth of that airport is limited by geography and geology and just the land itself. So anything else, commissioners? Are you ready to vote? Do you feel like we're ready?
Yes, we're ready. We're ready to vote.
Okay, just looking for everybody. Looks like you're all ready. Okay, so we have a motion to approve joint resolution number 2022-01. Motion was by Schwartz, the second was by Friedman. Roll call, please.
Chair Nunes,
4.
Vice Chair Kale,
4.
Commissioner Friedman,
4.
Commissioner Schwartz,
4.
Commissioner Lyons,
4.
Motion passes. Thank you so much again, everyone, for working together with us to get us up to speed on everything. Next up is joint resolution number 2022-02, a joint loan resolution of the City of Livingston and Park County, Montana, approving a loan in the amount of $102,852 together with interest thereon at the rate of 1.625 per annum on the unpaid balance of the principal until paid from the Aeronautics Division of the Department of Transportation of the State of Montana to the City of Livingston, Montana and County of Park, Montana for the purpose of rehabilitating the runway of the Gardner Airport in Gardner, Montana, providing for the repayment of the loan terms thereof. Mr. Cardus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll need a motion to extend at this point.
Thank you so much for that reminder. I know Faith sent it to me in the chat and I appreciate the verbal reminder. So we need a motion to extend. So I just need to say all in favor. Is that right? Can we just do it in one fell swoop, Mr. Cardus?
Yeah, you just need someone to, you still need a motion and a second, but then you can just do all in favor.
Okay, thank you for the reminder. So we need a motion to extend the meeting since we're past.
I make a motion to extend the meeting.
I second.
So motion by Schwartz. Second by Kale. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. I didn't hear Friedman or Lyons. Can anybody
Yes.
confirm?
Yeah.
Friedman said aye. Lyons said aye. Okay. So unanimous, motion passes. Thank you. All right, so now we're to joint resolution 2022-02. Thank you, Mr. Cardus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is a sister resolution to the one we just did. However, this is for the Gardner Airport. I will share you a quick screenshot for those that have not seen the Gardner Airport. It is not super complicated. This is a repaving loan. Gardner Airport services the park and local aviators in the area. As a fun fact, the city and the county did the joint resolution in 1950. And then in 1957, they added all the other airports in Park County into the joint airport board. So that's when the city became half owner of both the Gardner Airport and the Wilsaw Airport, which is why this is coming before you again. And Matt can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is basically just to help resurface the runway. Obviously, it's a little rough and not dark enough for the elk to sunbathe like they usually do there. So we're going to improve it for our elk friends from the Yellowstone. They really, really like the airport. It's green grass and an easy place to lie down. But again, it's again straightforward. It is only guaranteeing the loan. We're not actually paying anything out of the city budget. The airport will pay that again. So I will leave that there. And if you have questions for Matt, please go ahead.
Thank you. Matt, do you have anything you want to offer us?
Just that, sure. Thank you for having me. That runway has not been eligible for FAA funds in the past. And so that's one of the reasons it's deteriorated to the point it is. It's now to the point where sometimes they have to go kick off pieces of asphalt before they take off. So this project just mills up that runway and repaves it. And then in the future, we'll actually resurface it, excuse me, as we need to make sure that doesn't get to this point again.
So you're saying it's not desirable to have to kick off pieces of the runway before? I'm just kidding. Clearly that's not desirable. Okay, thank you so much for being here, Matt, for this one as well. Commissioners, do you have any clarifying questions about this agenda item?
Chair Newt.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just quickly, Matt, so that is the Gardner Airport now receiving some FAA funding annually, and that's going to help pay back this loan?
With COVID, we have received some funds, but it won't be a indefinite thing that just goes on for forever. Additionally, we got a fair amount of money from Montana Aeronautics, the state association, for this project. So that's where most of that money's coming from.
Thanks.
Other commissioners? Commissioner Lyons?
Is it simply a factor of the traffic that makes the Gardner Airport not qualify for FAA funds? Why is the Mission Field Airport qualifying and the Gardner Airport's not?
The FAA has requirements for setbacks, what can be around there. The road that goes in front of the airport's too close to the landing strip. We do have a trash collection area right there. That means that there's potential for birds getting in there and then flying up and getting into engines of planes. Just some of those setback requirements that don't allow for funding.
Commissioner Lyons, you still have the floor. Do you have any other questions?
I yield. Thank you.
Okay. Other commissioners, any questions before we move to a resolution or move to a motion, I mean? All right, we're ready for a motion on joint resolution number 2022-02.
Chair Newt. I'll make a motion to approve joint resolution number 2022-02.
Oh, I'll second.
Motion by Kale and a second by Schwartz. Thank you. And now we'll move to public comment. So if anyone wants to give comment on this joint resolution, please raise your hand or put your name in the chat. Hi, Steve Kuntz, go ahead. And can you please state your name and address too for the record, Steve?
Mute. There we are.
Yeah.
Okay, testing. Yeah, a couple, three things relative to the FAA requirements at Gardner.
Can you just start with your name and address, please, Steve?
Oh, excuse me, Steve Kuntz, 1007 Eagle Court, Livingston. Okay, okay, got it. Okay, one of the FAA requirements that is very difficult to deal with at Gardner is the fact those mountains are too close. And it's not enough room for their clearances as far as pattern altitudes and things like that. So you can deal with the birds and the roads, but the mountains are a really big problem. And the second thing I'd like to bring out is the fact that the Gardner community has really stepped up, and with their tourist tax money that they get, that extra little sales tax, they've over a 2-year period have put together about $130,000 for this project. So it's really important to the citizens of Gardner. They're paying real money. And then and also Montana Aeronautics has put up about $550,000. And so that's where all the heavy lifting is coming from on funding this particular project. And so I think it offers some real safety aspects of it. If there was some kind of a natural disaster, that could be the only exit for people getting out of Gardner. And obviously the firefighting thing is very important to the community. And so I thought I'd just add that little extra information there for you. I yield.
Thank you so much, Steve. Other folks, Austin, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you.
Name
So
and address,
Austin,
thanks.
yeah, you bet. Austin Tim, 2 M's, PO Box 363, Clyde Park. So yeah, just another quick little background around when I was younger. I used to drive a jet fuel truck. I'd spend the bulk of summers actually at the Gardner Airport, starting around 2007. So I remember the last time that airport got repaved, it was in bad shape then. It was really nice. It's kind of, there's cracks that'll swallow tires now. It's kind of interesting to have lived at the Gardner Airport for 60, 90 days at a time and see who comes in and out of there and see the benefit to the community. Yeah, there's a lot of elk, there's bison, everybody's there. There's a lot of prickly pear cactus to go through your tennis shoes, but also, you know, yes, the firefighting, the wildlife survey aircraft, and lesser degree, private individuals flying out. And I just wanted to touch base on that because during that last public testimony, and not to go off too far in the weeds, I hear a lot of discussion from other members of the public as well as the commissioners about the few who will use it, you know, and there's this idea that there's an elite class of people who's going to have access to these airports. I was over in Three Forks the other day and helping someone actually put an airplane back together that was having some trouble. And there was an older gentleman there who's got a lifetime of flying under his belt, and he made a wisecrack about how we're back in the golden age of aviation and everyone is afraid to admit it. And I said, well, why is that? And he said, well, because now only the rich and famous can afford to fly. So it's a really interesting prospect, right? You know, yes, we think now about private aircraft travels being limited to jets, but one of the biggest issues with aviation being available to normal people with blue collar levels of employment and income is accessibility. If you don't make aviation accessible to these small communities, there will never be an opportunity for some 16-year-old high school kid to go get himself or herself, for that matter, a pilot's license, and to go buy a small airplane for less than the cost of a new Honda and start flying as a passion. So I think that these small little airports, as overlooked as they are actually far more critical to community access than people give credit. And it's not all just about fire season or medevac. It's not all just about jets. To that point, Steve Coons, a couple of other people who have been around a long time. They obviously knew Bill Chapman and Loretta Chapman. My wife's a pilot. We had the opportunity to get to know Bill and Loretta pretty well before they passed away. And, you know, if you look at the history of that airport following the Korean War up until not that long ago, there's a lot of normal people who learned how to fly airplanes out of this very scary airport back in the mountains where most of the millennials nowadays wouldn't dare dream take an airplane. And it's a cultural issue. So I think that it's really valuable to see that airport kind of regain a position of prominence in a local economy that it used to have. I think it's going to benefit, obviously, the city of Gardner. It's going to continue to benefit Yellowstone National Park and the fire program, but it benefits the city of Livingston in the grand scheme of things, because if the park burns down, the city of Livingston is going to have a little economic issue on their hands. And I hate to paint that as a doom and gloom type of issue, but obviously Livingston very much does benefit from places like Gardner and Yellowstone. One other point to that economic concern of mine is that, you guys there? Oh, that's gone. Okay. West Yellowstone currently takes the cake. They are the premier airport, self-advertised for access to Yellowstone National Park. And I think it's a little silly because the West Yellowstone Airport is actually farther away from Yellowstone than the Gardner Airport, which quite literally is bisected by a land border with the National Park Service. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Once again, I've just got full support for anything improving aviation access here in Park County. So thank you for the time.
Thanks for being here, Austin. Other public comment? I'm not seeing anything. All right. Public comment for this agenda item is closed. So now we'll move into commission discussion. Commissioners, does anyone have anything they want to discuss on this one?
Chair Newt.
Vice Chair Kale, go ahead.
I'd just like to thank Austin and Steve for their comments. And Steve, thank you for the update about the Gardner Resort Tax and that the city of Gardner is putting money towards the airport. That's really great information to hear. So I appreciate that update. Thank you.
Thank you. Other commissioners?
I'll chime in real quick.
Thanks.
When I was city commission representative on the board, I have toured that airport several times, and yeah, the runway is in bad shape and has been for quite some time. And the Yellowstone National Park does use it quite a bit, and I know we had discussion about them, you know, the feds upping their money, you know, putting their money where the mouth is. They want to use this place, but you know, let's help maintain it. So I'm not sure where we're at with that, but we have had those discussions in the past. So it is a great asset for them down there. So thank you. I yield.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Friedman, were you going to say anything? You're good? Okay. All right. Just want to make sure I didn't miss anyone. All right. Well, we are ready then. We have a motion to approve joint resolution number 2022-02. We've done public comment and discussion, so we are ready for roll call, please.
Chair Newt.
Or
Vice Chair Kale.
Or
Commissioner Freeman.
Or
Commissioner Schwartz.
Or
Commissioner Lyons.
Or
motion passes. Let's see. So the next thing I need to look on the screen, it's an addendum to the agenda. So it's not in the regular packet. It's a link online, or you may have gotten a printed copy at City Hall. It's resolution number, and I'm going to ask you, please, Michael, to put this on screen after I read it. Resolution number 5023, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Livingston, Montana, authorizing the city manager to sign an agreement with the Montana State Historic Preservation Office for grant for local historic preservation office. Thank you, Mr. Cardis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this came before you as a request to apply for the grant a few months ago. So we did apply for the grant. It's now available to actually sign the contract with the historic preservation with the state. And then this money goes towards the salary of the historic preservation officer. In this case, it's $6,000. It would have gone to Matthew's salary had he stayed because he was a historic preservation officer. Right now, it'll revert back to Jim. And if we get a new planner that takes over that role, then it can go there. But it will come in and it will go towards the historic preservation officer, whoever that may be during the fiscal year.
Thank you so much. Commissioners, do you have any questions about this before we have a motion?
No.
All right, everybody's good? Okay, so we're ready for a motion on resolution 5023.
Make a motion to approve resolution 5023.
Second.
Motion by Schwartz and a second by Lyons. And now we'll open it to public comment. So if you want to comment on this resolution, now is your big chance. Please just raise your hand or put your name in the chat. All right, no public comment. Public comments closed. Commissioners, what do you want to discuss?
Let's vote.
No one wants to say anything about historic preservation? I'm shocked. Well, it seems like it's something that's of great importance to our community, and it's great to have grant funding to help pay for the work. So thanks to Jim for helping out in the interim while Matthew is gone and waiting for the next Matthew, whoever it is, to arrive to Livingston. I'm glad he's here and can help out. Any other commissioners have anything they want to say before we vote? All right, folks. Roll call, please.
Chair Nunes,
4.
Vice Chair Kale,
4.
Commissioner Freeman,
4.
Commissioner Schwartz,
4.
Commissioner Lyons.
4.
Motion passes. Thank you. All right, so back to the agenda. Now we are at, I believe, city manager comments. City manager comments. Do you have anything to share with the group? Mr. Cardis?
I have various and exciting things for the group this evening. As on the communication front, you should expect to see both the next city newsletter and the spring flyer sometime in the month of March. Please put the word out on the spring flyer. There is a ton of useful information in it, and it will also have the infamous street sweeper schedule. So many people miss this. Please don't throw it away. It's not junk mail. It is an important thing. When you're wondering why you're getting a street sweeper ticket, it's because you threw away the spring flyer. So do not throw away the spring flyer. They've done a great job on it this year. Helen has typed it up for us. She's a new hire, another great addition to the city. And so we're excited to get that out to you along with the next city newsletter. Additionally, we are starting to look for seasonal employees. Speaking of employees, so if you know anybody that wants to work on the parks crew this summer, or if you know anyone that would like to be a lifeguard or work in rec, please put that out there. And there will also be some seasonals in street, I believe. So if you have anybody that is interested in those, or if you're interested in those, please contact the City Hall, the HR department, and we will get you an application. And we would love to have you join the city team for at least a short time this summer. So we'll have we're looking for the next great crew to join the city. We also have a couple new, I guess, projects, new initiatives that we're going to try out. We'll see how they're going to work. The first is we are going to organize a cemetery cleanup day prior to Memorial Day to see if anybody would like to volunteer to help us prepare the cemetery for Memorial Day. While we can't let volunteers run lawnmowers or weed eaters, there will be some flag planting as well as some cleaning of the military headstones that are in the military section of the cemetery. So we're going to see if people would like to sign up for that. We're going to close the city offices that day and get as many of the staff out there as we can to do the work of getting the cemetery ready for Memorial Day to make sure puts its best foot forward on that important holiday. So mark that on your calendars. We'll get more information on that out as we go. But that could be both a fun and a meaningful way for people to get out and get together and do some work on the cemetery to make sure it's what we want it to be. And then finally, we are going to try something new. We're going to move away from our Facebook Live events, and we're actually going to see if the city can do a podcast instead to maybe reach people when they're not available during specific hours. So we'll still put questions out there, but we are going to try to do it on a true podcast format so people can download it either through Google Podcasts or the Apple Store or whatever podcasting software they happen to use. We're going to call it the Invisible City Podcast. I would like to point out that Chair Newts earlier this evening was talking about the invisible parts of the city, and that is actually what we're naming it for. If you're a design nerd, you may have read the book, The 99% Invisible City, which talks about those kind of things, the invisible design of a city and how a city works. So the podcast isn't only going to answer questions, it's going to cover some I think more informational topics, maybe some history, a little bit of the workings of the government itself. So it's going to be a little mismatch of topics to hopefully keep it interesting. They'll be probably fairly short. We don't want to ask people to listen to an hour podcast. So, but be looking once we get those out, we'll advertise that on the website as well. We'll hopefully be able to pull that off here in the next few weeks. And that is all I have.
Thank you. When did you say the Memorial Day volunteer day is?
The May 27th.
Yeah, we're planning on doing it on the Friday before Memorial Day. So that should be May 27th.
Okay. Do you know if it counts for, like, I don't know a ton about the high school kids volunteer hours. Does it count for that too?
Yeah, it absolutely will. If we get high schoolers to sign up, we'll make sure to send a roster back to the high school to make sure they get credit for the hours that they serve out there.
Oh, great. Is somebody from the city gonna let the high school know so that they can?
We're going to reach out to the high school, other schools, Boy Scouts, any other organization that may want to join us. We're trying to get as many people out there as we can.
I bet Shannon will really appreciate that. I think he was mowing last year, if I remember correctly. All right, well, thank you for that update. Commissioner Lyons, we're to city commissioner comments. Do you have anything you want to share?
I don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Schwartz.
No, thank you for a good meeting, Madam Chair. I enjoyed it immensely. But given the hour, no. Enjoy the fine weather we're having next couple of days. Thanks, I'll yield.
Thank you, Quentin. Commissioner Friedman, you're next.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground and I appreciate everybody's patience, and it's good to get all the input, and we're doing a lot of stuff, and to me, it's all good going forward. So, and I appreciate the people showing up today to support the local airport. I yield.
Thank you. Vice Chair Kale, you're up. I'm having a hard time hearing you. Oh. Try again.
Okay. My earbuds are dying on me. So I just want to thank the members of the public that came to the airport today and participated, asked questions and listened, and then all the folks that showed up this evening for our meeting as well. I so appreciate all the public participation and hearing from folks in the community. So I just wanted to thank those folks and for everybody that joined us today and put on the tour as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, I have my notes in here somewhere. I've already thanked the airport board profusely, but I sure am grateful, Steve, that you set up that invitation. It really was helpful for us. And I think it's really wonderful when our city commission can work with our boards and the county commission to figure things out together. So I'm really grateful also for county staff that came tonight. I think he already left, but that was very generous of Matt and his time. I would like to flag a couple things that came up. So I really do think we should be considering setbacks in the riparian areas when we're talking about development as Livingston grows. It's something to be proactive with and not count on another agency to take care of it. So that's something that I'd like to put on our list personally as we move forward with strategic planning. And I wanted to ask a question. Mr. Cordis, do you know how many people have applied for the ad hoc committee? Do you all have a total? I think that the date was
6.
yesterday. 6, excellent. So when that'll be coming up on an agenda soon, I suppose, where the commission make a selection.
That should be on the next agenda.
Great, thank you so much. That's what I thought. Okay. And then I also wanted to share, since the tree board was here tonight, sharing that there are open seats on the tree board. So if you know folks that are wanting to be involved, I think that it's a 7 to 9 person board. So I think we could have 2 to 4 more people on that board. So if you know people that want to be involved in local government, that would be a great board to join. And that is all that I have for tonight. Thank you so much, everyone. So grateful for this commission and for your, I don't know, just wading through the topics together and finding consensus among us. So thank you, all of you. And we need a motion to end this meeting.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion by Freeman, second by Lyons. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. None. 5-0. This meeting of the Livingston City Commission is adjourned at 9 p.m. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Hi, guys.